Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Part 2 of our episode number 50. I am BDLM, coming with my buddy J4Y, bringing you the rest of our Dota On Demand presentation. This episode is going to pretty much be diving into the patch notes, and I think this is actually probably going to be the bulk of this week's, or this podcast discussion. A lot of crazy, awesome changes, some new heroes to briefly go into. It's going to be a lot of fun. What's going on, man?
We've been just waiting to talk about this. It's so funny when something like this comes around, and we're in Skype with our friends and stuff, and we're just like, we want to talk about it, but we're just like, no, see, that would be good to talk about in the episode later. So I really don't want to get into it, but I do, and so like I remember you texting me like, dude, I just can't wait anymore. It's Friday night, but you know what? We're having a podcast tonight because it's just gonna happen, and I'm actually really happy to be doing this. It gave me an excuse not to go out to a bar I didn't want to go to tonight anyways. But on another note, there, social life. I'll have one tomorrow. That's fine. That's what Saturdays are for.
Busy racking up the E-fame this Friday night.
Oh yeah.
Stock up.
Yeah. But I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm really excited, and I think also compared to the last really big change that happened like this, I don't think I'm upset about any changes or like disappointed. I feel like I'm really just either happy or like very understanding of everything they've done in this patch so far. So, I mean, maybe I'll eat my words. I was gonna say bite my tongue, but maybe I'll eat my words later. We'll see as we go. But
chewing will be done.
Either way.
One or the other. I think this is an interesting one. I don't know if this is maybe me understanding the game better, or I'm underestimating how much I understood the other patches that we've had in the past and discussed on the show. But I feel like there are a couple of really big sort of threads that go through this one that kind of make a statement about how Ice Frog wants the game to be played, or how much... Like, there's some little things that I think when you add them up across the board, kind of make, like, this is what the point is. Like, this is what you need to take away from this and what is wanted to happen, but we'll get into it. So, I know you made way too many notes, so take it away, my friend. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, I'm going to just briefly touch, and this isn't going to be too in-depth, but just kind of list out that there's been 3 new heroes that are added to Captain's Mode as of this patch for Dota 1. Now, granted, it'll probably happen in Dota 2 as well, as we've figured out in the past, but it's not a guarantee, but we'll see. The 3 are Ember Spirit and Legion Commander, which we don't really know very well right now, but they were the newer heroes that came out, I believe, within the past year sometime. And then Centaur Warrunner is now officially as well in Captain's Mode. So I guess the only thoughts you could have are on Centaur. What do you think about that?
I mean, I'm glad to see him. I think he's obviously, since his rework, he's definitely an interesting hero. I'm really curious to see how highly valued he's going to be. Again, this is like one of those things where I certainly see the potential of how he could come in, but I'm not going to like say he's going to be like the next big thing or whatever, because we just don't know. But I'm definitely glad to see that this hero that's already in Dota 2 has this potential to sort of be like a bonus extra hero to get added in, sort of, you know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden we can see him in competitive play. We've been waiting for it for a while, and now we're finally going to have the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely... I'm not going to... Once again, I don't want to say a statement that I'm going to regret later, but I really doubt he's going to make a big impact on the scene. However, he might have a niche. He might have a role that he fills that some other players or heroes, like his Stampede... I mean, there's definitely probably going to weigh... His ultimate's going to weigh in for certain comps or something. But that, once again, like you said, is really going to be something that the pro players show us what they think they can do with that hero, the potential there. Maybe he'll be a new jungle hero that, with the return, that we'll find out is actually pretty efficient. The double edge with AoE could speed that. I mean, I don't know. Who really knows until it happens? That's the beauty of it right there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Ember Spirit and Legion Commander, when like I said, we really don't know too much at all about that.
I'm interested. We'll see. Yeah.
I remember the only thing I've said about Ember Spirit is I think he's broken, according to what I've seen. But
I think probably he is the most likely to matter. But I personally am very interested to see if there are any ramifications for Legion Commander. But yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to talk about it too much. There are, I mean, if we're talking about new heroes that get added, there are two new heroes that we're not really going to talk about at all because A, they're crazy. Both of them, they're kind of ridiculous sounding, and there's definitely going to be a lot of nuance to these guys. Kellen the Earth Spirit and Nerf the Oracle, one a melee strength hero. Yeah, he is melee. Mm-hmm. And then a new int ranged hero. So they're going to be nuts, and I can't wait to see both of them in action.
I can't wait to talk about them later because each of those are going to probably have just so much to talk. It's going to be like our Skywrath episode, probably, at least with the Earth Spirit guy, because God, his kit sounds ridiculous. But yeah, that is for future. We didn't talk about with the other patches, so we're going to hold our tongue once again on this until he becomes relevant, because this is a Dota 2 podcast after all, not just Dota in general. So we're trying to keep it, at least a little concentrated when we can, I guess. But that's a good point to bring out. So I guess we could start getting to some of the changes then. Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Down like a clown on a Saturday night.
It's Friday. We're not clowns. But go ahead.
Item changes.
Item changes. The perfect segue into item changes.
I couldn't think of any one. So basically what I'm going to do here is probably just start listing off some of these changes, and some of these are definitely going to be a lot bigger than other ones. So maybe I'll just pause after I make a statement and let you retort. What would you prefer? Would you prefer me just start listing, or do you want to have a retort every time I start going something?
I did not. Give me the opportunity to jump in.
I did not list them based on relevance. So I kind of just went in actually alphabetical order based on the name of it. So
well, there you go. All right, let's do it.
All right. So, and hold on a second.
Well, he's holding on for a second.
My roommate, aka my mother, just came down a second. I'm not afraid to admit it. Hi, Mom. Anyways, so into the item changes. Here we go. The first one being, I was going to say Assault Cuirass. So the positive armor can now stack with other items. So not a huge change, but definitely something noteworthy.
I'm going to save that one for later.
Okay. We'll let that go into later. This next one, a lot bigger. The Black King Bar, now the magic immunity has a 6 level of decrease, so now it goes down to 4 seconds duration and 50-second cooldown. The previous one was 5 second and 55-second cooldown.
I like that a lot, I think, because I don't think they're really... Obviously, Beastmaster pops in rarely, but I want to say that there really haven't been a ton of heroes where you go, oh yeah, well we need to pick them up because BKB. So it's like... It wasn't so strong that it provoked hero choices, but now it's it can't just destroy you because you didn't do that. You know what I mean? You can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to pick up BKB on so and so in 5 seconds." I'm sure, So I think it's kind of nice. It's obviously going to be that much more important to hold on to your charges, and it's going to be that much more detrimental to accidentally pop it because 4 seconds is fine, but obviously. So the seconds matter in Dota 2.
Dare I say an indirect buff to Abyssal Blade? Dare I say that?
I guess.
Get that, now that 2 seconds stun, really, they feel that a lot more now that's I mean, yeah, I'm talking about a second of a difference here, but I don't know. I like to look at it something maybe Abyssal Blade's that much stronger against these heroes later on in the game, because now they've only got 4 seconds, and you take half of that away with a stun, that's kind of sucky for them, so I personally really do like that change. BKB is just one of those items that it doesn't ruin the game by any means. It's very important on some heroes, but if you allow it to last too long, these casters late game just really get stomped on. They can't do a whole lot. So I really like that change. It's still 4 seconds it can be enough for you to do what you need to do late game, depending on the hero. So I think that's reasonable enough. Now if they go down 3 seconds or something, then we might start having some issues because really, what is the point? Because we already know the change before where you can't sell and rebuy it. So you're stuck with it once you get it.
Yeah. That's true. It would definitely make it maybe a lower priority item, but I don't know. I'm not it's one of those things where I'm not like crazy. I was intrigued by it, but it didn't really blow my mind too much. I guess maybe it should, and I just am not thinking it through clearly. But I definitely think that that's going to be nice for when you have to sort of deal with like the anti-mage and stuff still. That now he is a little bit more vulnerable, and these heroes aren't just unstoppable war machines with that BKB.
I was gonna say maybe it also might change how they play. Like now, before they might just been way more willing to just use it, even if the situation like necessarily didn't call for it. They're like, you know what, it'll be fine. I'll just use it, take one charge off now, not a big deal. Maybe like, well, if I use it now, I'm that much closer to that 4-second one, so maybe I'll just risk this one and just not pop it this fight. I mean, who knows? It's only a second difference, but it could impact them in that kind of way. But all right, that's enough about that one little change. Let's move on now to the Bloodstone, another pretty, not huge change, but a decent-sized one. First of all, the initial charges are now, starting from 6, you now start at 8 charges. And you can now activate it to instantly kill yourself. Think Goblin Techies. Ha, hew, hew, hew. And you target the ground to be used in, I put in here, to prevent accidents, question mark? And it's got a 300-second cooldown. Oh, and I also wrote, fails of the week incoming.
Yes, that's going to be pretty good. I mean, I've seen some of the list of patch notes where it literally says, this is so you don't accidentally fat finger the Bloodstone self-destruct. But it's definitely interesting. And I think it's going to maybe make bots that much more interesting to pick up. I mean, not that... I feel like most of the heroes where you think you're getting a Bloodstone, you're going to obviously be able to start farming quickly enough that bots are an option, and it's not like you're going to need to prioritize having another boot on those heroes. So, being able to kill yourself and then get back into the fight, I think there's maybe going to be some potential there for being, what happens if you're a Tinker?
Mm-hmm.
Can you reset the 300-second cooldown?
Oh, with Refresher? I'm almost positive you could.
Or with, rearm.
Absolutely. I don't see why you couldn't. Mm-hmm. I mean, it hasn't been said, but I believe you can. Now, yeah, you could double explode, I guess. I don't know what you're doing at that point, but let's just say I like to double explode.
I'm just throwing it out there, man. I'm just throwing it out there. I also just realized, too, that the, I don't know if you wrote this down, the Ethereal Blade self-cast or ally castration, also 4 seconds. So, if we want to go back to the BKB, that's kind of an interesting interaction.
Ooh,
someone pops
true.
their 4-second BKB, you just saved their life.
Ghost Scepter's not changed, though, right? That's still its duration of,
Probably.
I believe, 2.5 seconds.
So, I think that's actually pretty powerful, and that is an interesting correlation between the numbers. That you have the increase to the E-Blade, and then the decrease in the time for the BKB. So, it makes it maybe a more attractive item pickup.
I lied. So, apparently, Ghost Scepter's always been 4 seconds.
Oh,
so now
okay.
they just bumped up E-Blade to match it.
There you
So, wow. So, Ghost Scepter even, which supports can actually get later in the game, now that BKB is literally the same duration as the Ghost Scepter and the E-Blade. So there you go. It's that is kind of a nice little nitpick there. We're good at the little details here and there,
Apparently.
Apparently that's all we're good at. So not out of game knowledge or anything. Screw that. No, we don't know any of that crap. But the Bloodstone thing, I was really trying to figure out, and you can probably paint a picture here. But when do you think that'd be useful to want to suicide in a fight?
I'm not sure.
Exactly.
That's part of the problem that I have with that change. I mean, you're going to be suiciding in order to give the heal, basically.
Right.
Is the point. In a 675 range, so it's rather excessive. And you're going to be coming back quickly. So, if everyone else is taking stupid amounts of damage and you're maybe already low or something, you dropped the heal, you come up in like 10 seconds, maybe that's enough time that you're able to bot into the fight. But then again, this is sort of a lot of like what ifs and being a very specific scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So, and how many we see Leshrax get it? Maybe. And obviously this is going to be a thing when we get into the heroes,
Right.
maybe Necrolite becomes more popular,
Hmm.
and you might be interested in picking it up on him. And if you're the focus target, you're stupid low, you get away or something, you realize you're going to come back in, or I don't know. It's very interesting.
See, the way I'm thinking of it is like if you're already low health, I don't see very often in fights where they like don't finish you off. Like I feel like people are going to want to kill you, so it's not like you have to worry about staying alive and not dying. But what I really think maybe one of the most prevalent things is if you're a caster and you're out of mana completely and you can't help your team anymore. And I know yes, I know you regen mana a lot with Bloodstone, but you might want like your full pool or something. Or I mean, like I said, this is kind of a stretch because either way, I'm not exactly sure how often you want to suicide on a hero that's not techie. So, I'm struggling there.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a regular Bloodstone thing to
No.
suicide yourself. But I am certainly open to seeing the strategy in which that is useful. So we'll
Indeed,
see. We'll see.
someone will show us the way. Someone
Light the
will.
path.
So moving on now to the bottle, which is while empty, causes couriers to move 30% slower. Now, the first thing I have to say is most people on Reddit pointed out the irony that an empty bottle makes it slower than a full bottle. However, it is a magic bottle. So that was the answer I found on the Reddit post, is that you have to remember it's a magic bottle. So that's why its inherent properties are slightly different than the norm.
Fair enough. I think this is very interesting, especially because now the Pinoy let's buy two courier thing, I think might be more prevalent. That might be one of the answers that you come up with. We're going to have to dedicate a courier to whoever's running the bottle. The other thing too is I think it's going to be a lot easier to courier snipe, and I think this is also going to be really a nice solution to heroes like Magnus. Because I think any time, especially of late in the qualifiers or in the G1, whenever people talk about Magnus, the conversation always sort of ends the same way. He's not going to lose. You can't make Magnus lose. It's impossible. He's going to farm. He's going to just, in the shockwave, he's going to be able to be close enough to get experience because he can skewer away. And he's not going to run out of mana because he's just going to keep ferrying the bottle. So you can beat him, but he's not going to lose. He's going to get what he needs. And so now that you're limiting this, it gets a little bit harder. And if you have to say, well, we really need our Magnus to not lose, so let's buy a second courier. So you're making a money investment there. Or, you're the other team and you realize they're going to need to ferry this bottle in order for it to work. Let's actively try harder to courier snipe.
Right.
I think this is a really great solution to the fact that there are sort of those mid I can't lose scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton of them, but granted, but yeah, for basically the ones that absolutely ferry like very often, not range casters generally, or not Queen of Pains or Pucks or whatever, but the Magnuses of the world exactly. So I would agree with that, and we'll have to see. I also like what you said about the sniping. I mean, especially if it's a double courier thing, the second courier is generally not upgraded very often, if at all. I mean, sometimes it will be, but that is another big investment if they are upgraded. And if it's not upgraded at 30% slower, it's already slow if it's a ground one. Add 30% slow to that thing is a slug, and it should be so easy. It just takes. We've seen catapults pick off ground couriers. Okay, catapults can do it. If a catapult can do it, I think a hero in a pro game could handle it. So and now let me just go right into the next one, which ties right into it with courier change. So first of all, you no longer can block neutrals from spawning with it, which is a great change just off the bat. And then the speed burst is now from 100% to 50% bonus to stack with bottle. So essentially, apparently, it's going to be max speed either way if there's no bottle on it. However, now if it does have a bottle, it's not going to be max speed with the burst, but it is without. So that's to tie right into that bottle change essentially.
Yeah, and I think that sort of adds to the fact that if you're really going to want to be running a bottle back and forth regularly, you're going to have a second courier, because if you can't even use the speed burst to try and get it there quickly, then you're going to be taking so much time from your one position, from your supports being able to get wards out on the field. I don't think you're going to be able to play the way that you do now, being able to just regularly run the bottle and then run the courier to the other lanes if it has to go. I think now you're really going to have to be a lot more careful in the middle lane, and you're going to have to pay a lot more attention to the runes. And I think that's for the best, really, because that's sort of a thing that I feel like has sort of not dropped off, but obviously it's a little less important for you to fight over the runes if you just go, yeah, I'm going to miss the buff, but thanks, look at my bottle filled. It's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm pretty intrigued by this. We'll see how it affects. Like you said, pretty much in this current meta, Magnus is probably the number one affected here, but obviously it will affect just the game in general.
And I kind of like that too. It's a way to nerf Magnus without nerfing Magnus.
The indirecting.
I think that's yeah, and that is present for a number of these items, like the assault curious thing is obviously going to, like I said, I wanted to talk about later because it's going to tie into a hero fairly specifically. But I think, oddly enough, I got to bring this up. It ties into one of the heroes. Riki gets a buff to the ulti where he fades faster now, becomes permanent invisibility fade time decreased from 2.25 to 1.5 to 3.21. So my question to you, sir, is that a buff when you consider that now the dust of appearance slows invisible units?
That was my next point. So dust of appearance can now first of all stack an inventory. Can we all praise the Ice Frog for that one? Oh my god, about time. And then you're right. It's if a hero has an invisibility buff, they're slowed by 10% if they get hit by the dust. So. Yes, it's a buff. But that being said, especially in competitive games, Dust has always been a great way against Riki, especially who, obviously, unlike Slark, can't just remove the dust. He has to keep it on him. So if you hit him with that, he's obviously going to have some issues. 10% slow, it's not going to be devastating. It's going to be kind of annoying, but it's not going to be devastating. But I believe also with the fact that it can stack in inventory late game is really going to help out these supports who just have no room in their inventory, essentially. And now they're going to finally be able to carry these items around while still having some kind of survivability items on top of it.
Yeah, I think the other really nice thing here, too, is that when you look at an item like Shadowblade, that essentially gives you two built-in escapes. It's one thing, but you get two things that help you get out of it. You get the invisibility, and then you also get the movement speed. And of course, when you're a support, you're strapped for cash as it is. You're going to pop a dust, hoping that you guys can hold somebody in place, but what if you can't, And you look at the number of heroes where Shadowblade is a thing. Kunkka, Gyrocopter maybe. You look at Nature's Prophet, Alchemist, Doom. There's Dragon Knight sometimes. This hero is really popular sort of across the board, and when you have the ability to essentially bait out the dusts, and you're just making it worse for the other supports, I really do like that change. I think it's gonna, obviously you're still gonna wind up, getting bonus movement speed out of the Shadowblade pop, but it's something that I definitely think is nice and really interesting. And I think now you might not be able to just run around on the enemy team invisible and just sit on them and just hope that they don't know that you're there. Because now if you do get spotted, you're going to be snared, when they pop the dust.
It kind of makes it more rewarding to buy in general, both these changes. It's like, before it was I'd either buy dust or I'd buy sentries, which are very close in price. And actually, the sentries, you would get two of them. So really, it's almost a better deal to grab those. Now, of course, the radius of the dust is bigger, and it goes through trees and all things like that. However, that being said, the sentries last a while. So, it was kind of a debate, do I get sentries? Do I get dust? What am I doing here? But now you kind of have that much more of a reward for using the dust. Oh, yeah, I'm going to slow them down a little bit, too, on top. So, all around, yeah, definitely making that a stronger item in general. But and now I love how this alphabetical order, they actually all kind of still go in a great synergy order for me. So my next one is Gem of True Sight, actually. Speaking of Invis heroes. And it can no longer be destroyed. And the cost is increased from 700 to 850, which is also actually a pretty big deal, considering that supports buy that item very often. So I guess we'll just start with no longer being destroyed. Who's that helping? What's the point of that?
I think it's really, really nice late game because now you can't just take it out of the equation. You have to be worried about it. You can't. I mean, I guess you could leave it and try to deal with it later, but you can't just whatever. And then if we decide a new one later, we can buy a new one or whatever. It really now is this item that's going to if you buy it, you have the chance the enemy team is going to have it. They can't freak out late game and just have their carry just punch it and it's destroyed. It's unfortunate that the gem is more expensive for supports, but I think really now that the gem is really counter warding. I mean, not that it wasn't before,
right.
But I think because of the buff to dust, that's really going to be your way to deal with invis heroes. And the gem really is about controlling the map. And so if you're going to try and invest money into controlling the map, it really shouldn't be something that can just disappear. I think the inherent fear of they're going to get it is, I think, much more important.
Yeah, now it's really a concern. Before, yeah, like you said, worst case scenario, maybe we can get the pick off on it, and that way the other team doesn't have to get it. But now it's like, oh shoot. Well, first of all, maybe we need to be either really quick on dropping an item to pick it up, or have that open slot on someone near that person, so that way we can just grab it. Because yeah, it's so crucial for that map control. Like you said. Now, granted, you don't have to have it on a hero. You can drop it in base. You can.
Yep.
It's not like undroppable. So worst case scenario, you pick it up and you're afraid, or so the other team gets it and they don't want to have it. Yeah, they'll just leave it in base and it's not going to go and do anything. So at least they didn't change no longer can be dropped like a freaking Aegis or something. But no, I really like it. And then the 150 gold extra. I mean, I really do. That's a pretty steep penny for some of these people. That's another set of awards for these people. I mean. And I know supports aren't the only ones that get it, but I feel like they usually do, just because you'd rather have that 800 gold going towards something else for a carry than a gem. So, I mean, that's going to be that much harder for them to get.
Yeah, I mean, having a support that has some mechanism to farm might be a little bit more important now. I mean, it's 150 at the end of the day if you really need to get one. Obviously, the pro teams are going to put it together one way or another, Right. So I think that's fair, though. Again, it's this thing that can make such a dramatic swing in a game, especially if you're a decent amount ahead and then you pick up a gem and you completely destroy the opposition's vision of the map. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's hard to come back from that sort of thing. So I think it's a good decision.
Now here's the next one, and it's unfortunately these are a little out of order for being related. Darn. Oh well, but I'm still going to stick in my order. Observer rewards are now the initial stock starts at 1 instead of 2, but the max is still 2, but you can only buy 1 off the bat.
That's fair. I mean, I don't know that that's like an excessive deal. I mean, that being said, I think this is one of those things that really throughout this patch is a big deal, is how much vision people are getting and from what. A lot of spells had their flying nerfed, the flying vision. Like, actually, I don't know if Storm Spirit's Revenant's got nerfed to ground, but they're an example of a unit that does give flying. Elder Titans actually was nerfed from the Spirit getting flying vision to ground vision. So it's interesting that there are a lot of these vision changes, and of course the Sentry Ward AoE being decreased as well. But it's kind of nice again because you don't have this absolute control, and maybe just going back to the gem, just how much vision teams are able to accrue. It seems like it's a major focus this patch.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I've got two kind of thoughts on it. The first one being, once again, I'd like to go to the Dota Reddit to see how people react to certain things. And one of the biggest comments was the guy saying, being the offlaner for my team, I have one word for this, and he capitalized, fuck. Because essentially, he may not no longer be allowed to get the starting Sentry awards for his or the Observer awards for his team. That may just be a thing. And this now ties into my second point. Actually, when I say mine, I mean the chat. NVUK bringing his contribution in, saying that this means if a team gets dewarded early, they go the first 6 minutes without map vision. And that is so true and a very crucial thing. Rune control early is so key for mid. And now, normally, yes, you can use like supports to go help control the runes, so you don't need the wards absolutely, but they help a great deal. And this is where now maybe if you're concerned that your offlaner may get dewarded from their supports, you may just keep the wards on your side of the map to kind of, I guess, you'll be able to protect them, and you'll still keep vision of the river where you need some important spots at least.
Yeah, and I mean this might even just piggyback onto the bottle thing, and now that the runes are so much more important, so these things sort of weaving into one another. But this you could also say that now that you can't spend this 150 gold to buy wards, you can now spend it to get a second courier. So that might be even more prevalent because of a change like this.
Ooh.
So, yeah, you're losing the vision, but you might just really be shifting how you're able to deal with that lack of vision. And I think, too, when you're talking about the subreddit with offlaning, that's another thing that when we start talking about the heroes I wanted to bring up. Offlaners got helped so much this patch. I always thought it was interesting. I wasn't really sure if I liked it or not. The fact that teams started to come up with this idea of, let's just abandon the offlane. It doesn't, whatever. We'll let them free farm. It's cool if they want to kill the towers. That's cool too. We're going to go into the jungle, and we're just going to make sure that we can get this person experience and gold. A lot of the popular offlane heroes got small buffs across the board. You also have the increased AoE to deny experience, which is pretty important. So I don't even remember what we were talking about before to make me think that was important. The wards?
The wards about how the offlaner might get screwed over.
Yeah, so he might get screwed over in the vision, but he's also getting a little bit of help to make that offlane possible.
Yeah, that's a good counterpoint there. And we'll get into the experience and stuff a little bit down the road here. So that's the Observer Ward thing. And now kind of tying back in that vision, or I guess he's all kind of ward related, the Quelling Blade change. So it can now target wards to do 100 damage, and wards have 200 health, so it's two-shottable by the Quelling Blade, essentially. I believe it's a 3-second cooldown. It is normally 3 or 4 seconds. And the cast range increased from 100, so melee range, to 350. So
it's 5 seconds.
Oh, 5 seconds? Well, time is not my friend. But it wasn't in the note, okay? Stick to the notes. So now melee heroes have potential to deward without saying, "Hey, Mr. Support, please help me, sir. I want some more." They got their own method here.
It's pretty cool, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if melee supports even pick it up.
I was going to say something now.
As opposed to the carries, just because I think it's going to help them farm a little bit better, and that's, obviously we always sort of characterize supports as heroes that don't need gold. They, of course, benefit from it, being able to actually stack up items on themselves. So, when you're a Tide Hunter and you're just, running around back and forth oh, this is the ward here, I found it, well, I can't do anything. It kind of sucks. So now that you actually have these heroes are going to be able to, yeah, it's going to take a while, obviously. It's going to take the 5 seconds for you to be able to kill it, so you're just sitting there waiting. But the fact that they actually have an answer for it now, I think, is important.
Oh my god, my thought. So, dewarding wars, right? Where supports, they both put the sentries down. They both go to try to kill it. Who has the Quelling Blade? I don't think items can miss uphill.
That's
so I
true.
believe that gives you a little leg up in the dewarding wars. Not that that's a huge prevalent thing that happens all the time, but it will give you
that's pretty
half
cool.
the health of it down. Just a thought. That's all.
I did not consider that. Now teams are going to be timing their attacks, and as soon as they see one put it under half, Quelling Blade.
Bam!
What's
Execute.
up? I got it. Yeah.
Anyways, just a random thought there. So yeah, Quelling Blade, that's a pretty cool change for it, And I don't honestly believe supports will get Quelling Blades now because of this, but you never know. It is a chance. Or even now, those melee supports or carries that maybe can't blink around or something easily can now help their teammates do ward as well. So, just another thing to add to the list. Biggest change, I think, NA right here. Radiance damage increased from 45 to 50.
We're gonna talk about this later.
Are we?
Yep.
Okay. Well, hold on to your seats, guys. That one's coming later.
Blow your mind.
Maybe I was accurate when I said the game changing. We'll see later. Oh, and then I said Sentry Ward. You've already said it, but the AoE decreased from 950 to 800, so actually a decent chunk getting taken out there.
I like it because I think that as teams were starting to find more and more places to put observer wards, especially in aggressive tri-lanes, you noticed that there were a couple spots where you could put a sentry, and it's like, we can see these two, and then here's where another third one gets placed sometimes, and you can find them all because of one sentry ward if you put it in the right spot. So I think that's fair, and I think that also, again, helps shift the focus to maybe the gem, and also to the dust, which I think are going to be really important. I think the sentry ward really is pretty much just going to be for area control. I mean, obviously, but for being able to spot out the wards, and then, if you're putting it up by the river or something, to be able to see Invisheroes traveling around the runes, and that's going to be about it, Instead of this just good luck kind of thing, we can just gain massive control of a bigger area.
Indeed. Now I'll go over. There's a couple tiny ones that we probably don't need to get too much into, but I guess worth mentioning, like little runner-ups. The fact that the Blink Dagger now is a 12-second cooldown instead of 14. I mean, not game-breaking, but definitely still a portion taken off. The Lincoln Sphere cooldown reduced from 20 to 17. The Shadow Blade going damage decreased from 30 to 22, so just taking 8 damage right off the cusp there. Not a huge deal. And there's a couple other smaller cooldown changes, but nothing I don't think is really as big as the other ones I've listed there. Do you have any other things you wanted to mention?
Later.
Oh, God, you and your laters, man. I'm kind of getting antsy just thinking about what you want to talk about. I can't even wait for these things.
It's going to be good.
So I just want to also throw out a note for those who are listening live, which is one. Many. Or if you're listening to the podcast, buckle your seatbelts, kids, because we're only 40 minutes in and just finished items. So buckle the seatbelts is all I have to say. We're going for a ride. Going for a ride here.
Be nice.
But like we warned you, we had plenty of thoughts to go around for these. It's probably like you said before because we actually know what we're talking about this time around, or we think we do. All right, so we're finished with items. Going on to gameplay changes now. And I guess we should probably start at the probably biggest one for competitive play that happened is the new ban and pick order that is getting put in, and it might be confusing because I don't know if there's a better way to do it than how I was just going to list out the new order. Do you think there's a better way, or should I just go ahead and list it out here?
I think you could probably just say that you go...
Alright, I'll do it kind of an easier, abrupt way. So, essentially, it's 2-2-1 is the new order instead of being 2-3... the old one. I'm not going to even confuse myself here. But so essentially, they alternate bans. So they start out the same amount of bans, and then they pick 2, and then they ban 2 again, and then they pick 2 again, and then they ban 1 each, and then they pick 1 each.
Yeah, so it's not Snake anymore, basically. You just go back and forth. And I'm not sure how much I like this, to be honest with you, because that last ban is going to be really obvious. You're going to be hard-pressed. I mean, you can do it, and there have been games that I'm sure even you and I have cast of low-level play where you go to the last pick and you go, well, really, they're not locked into anything. They really could still pick just about any position, and it's going to be okay, but I feel like, by and large, you're going to be able to hit the nail on the head and go, they're looking for mid, so let's ban the mid we don't want to play against. Right. They need a support, so let's ban out the one that we don't want to play against. Maybe that's a good thing, because teams can't get surprised as easily, but at the same time, you're also sort of taking some of the mystery out of it and some of the danger of the banning phase. So there's also really no... I mean, I guess there is a difference. Team 1 gets first ban, they get first pick, and then so they get the first ban and the first pick going into the game.
And then last pick.
and then last pick. So, I mean, there's still going to be differences between, maybe some teams will still prioritize one over the other, but it's not like, well, we want to pick first because we want the very first hero out. And other teams will be like, well, I want two heroes back to back. I want to be able to pick up two big heroes, So
It's gonna be
interesting.
The other thing that kind of happened with this is the total pick ban time is now 700, not counting reserve time, and the reserve time is 110 seconds per team. So overall, less time for teams to pick, but I believe it's extra reserve time. I think they gained 20 more seconds in reserve time total. So, I mean, is that more just to rush this along, or what? Why do you think they did that?
I don't know, but I think it makes it sort of more interesting. I mean, maybe this is where you're saying if you're going to make the last ban pretty obvious, then you should just have less time to decide, which is kind of interesting. I'm still not exactly sure what my thoughts are on it. It's something I've thought a lot about, but I'm still the jury's out.
Yeah, I feel like this kind of it's kind of an evolution, because when they changed it from the original 2 bans each to 2 picks, and then they got the 3 bans in the middle. Now it's 3 bans right up front and then 2 bans later. So like those last. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I said
bans.
That. It's 3 bans, 3 bans into. God, why am I confused?
2 bans each to start the game.
2 bans each to start the game. Right. Why was I saying the opposite?
I don't know.
Anyways, I feel like it's kind of evolved into this more focused banning for certain heroes instead. Like, oh, that's what it is, right. It's 2 bans each to start, but you get the 3 picks, and then you get 3 bans for the 2 heroes. I'm saying that right now. So now it's like it's more focused banning for specific roles instead of just like general across the board, like, well, we hate these heroes, so I'm just going to ban them even though I don't know what you're going to pick next kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, maybe just going back to how it's no longer snake draft, there's no longer, I feel like, this big swing back and forth where you're going to see the first, oh yeah, this big crazy hero, then, oh crap, you gave away these 2 big heroes now. It's going to be very much, we get this one, and you get this one, and we get this one, and you get this one. Like, it's probably going to be a lot easier to maybe spread out the quote-unquote strongest heroes, the tier 1 heroes. So you're not going to be able to, Magnus Batrider out of the gate, because they decided that they wanted Life Stealer.
The only snaky part is that first section. There is one little snake hump in the. I guess we'll call it a camel hump. I don't know. What
there is. My apologies.
Yeah, it's so the first pick part is Team 1 gets picked, then Team 2 gets both picks back to back, then Team 1 gets their pick again, and then in the second round it's alternating again. So there's one camel hump. We'll call it a camel hump. Don't worry, it's gonna catch on too. It makes a lot of sense. Good. But yeah, so it's so interesting. It's got elements from all these different kind of drafts, all wrapped into one. So we'll definitely see. Now, thank God, if anyone keeps up with Heroes New Earth, and you've seen their lock pick system, or whatever freaking annoying draft thing they wanted to invent, it's like, you guys tried, man, but that was just way too confusing. This one, it's not like mind blowing what they've done here. It's just, I feel like it's just more targeted at the end, exactly, and like you kind of said. So. It'll definitely be. We obviously have to wait and see on this one. The jury is out, indeed. But any other thoughts before we move on there?
Not really.
Yeah, we kind of went through that one pretty decent. So I'll just kind of mention the experience thing that you were kind of getting into. So the deny experience and bonus experience gold AoE is now the same as regular experience, so up to 1,200 instead of 1,000. And then they kind of made some tweaks to how much experience bonus you gain. I mean, I don't know if I really should jump into. Essentially, you kind of get a little bit more. It looks like maybe at least initially, and then it scales differently. At the end of the day, some levels get different reductions in here. I think the one that you really want to make note of, though, is that deny range and experience thing. I guess the gold for ending a spree, that's kind of a bit of a difference there, going from 50 to 400 to 75 to 600. Definitely a bigger reward for ending sprees, so pretty important to protect, I guess, those that are on those sprees later in the game. Because I mean, a couple hundred goals is not going to change the game, but it definitely will help.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a reasonable increase, and yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Obviously, more gold is better, and like you said, it's
yes.
it's going to mean that protecting those people is more important. And now that you have BKB coming down to shorter cooldown, maybe their lives are a little bit more at risk. So
the weaving. You're talking about that weaving, man.
Just
you're the one weaving it. You're the weave master over there.
spinning a web over
Have
here.
you made a dream catcher recently?
Yes, I have.
Wow,
No,
that's
I
really
haven't.
awesome that you did. I used to have one of those as a kid, by the way. I had a dream catcher. It might have to do with my Native American background. All my left index finger of it, but
Of 100% of
right of an atom or something. But anyways, I did not get any ethnicity scholarships for that. I'll put it that way. So moving along here, the buyback cooldown increased from 5 to 6 minutes. So adding a whole minute onto that, definitely nice. And I really like the direction. This isn't the only one. We'll get into some more a little bit later, but it seems like they're trying to get away from the buyback aspect of the game. Not completely, obviously. It's a very important aspect of the game, but they don't want games to end in where, okay, I'm going to farm 6,000 gold on my hero and just, if I die, I'll just buy right back. And, keep extending team fights to the point where you can't even push in because they have so much gold that it's so hard for you to get past just the buybacks alone. So I really like them finding a way, or trying to find a way to make that harder to continuously buy back to win team fights.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's fine. I mean, it's one of those, again, it's really straightforward, and obviously it's going to have a big impact on the game. Now you have to be a lot more careful with your buybacks. And then, of course, later, when we get into the heroes, there's even more play with the buybacks. But, again, I think these big heroes are going to have to be a lot more careful now. They're not just going to be able to get to a certain point where they steamroll over everybody and, oh, well, they finally brought me down, buyback, let's do it again. I think it's going to be a lot more judgment calls for these one rolls to decide when they actually are popping their BKBs, when they're buying back, what they should be buying back for, how many heroes do we really need to defend? Do we need to spend all of our buybacks? Should we stagger our buybacks? I think a lot more of that sort of thing is going to come into play. Is Roshan worth buying back for in some of these situations? These small changes, I think, raise a lot of questions that are going to affect the competitive scene.
I can't count how many times I remember seeing a one dying, and then maybe he's got 25 seconds left on his timer after 75 or whatever starting out, and he decides to buy back at 25 because they're like, oh crap, we really do need you. That decision right there, with an extra minute on the buyback cooldown, I think you would want to know right away, am I buying back for this? Am I not buying right back for this? Because that 50 seconds could have made a huge difference in the next fight. So, yeah, I think those little things there really do stack up as we go. So, yeah, I like I said, I'm definitely in favor of that change. The towers changed, so I believe they got a little bit of buff. I think the Tier 1, Tier 2 got a little bit of an armor buff. Or something along those lines. 2 armor buff, which is nice. 18 to 20. The really cool thing, though, and I really do like this change, is there's no longer a separate bounty, a value for last hitting. So, essentially, what this change is, it gives the same reliable bounty to all players as if a creep killed it. Excuse me. However, if a player kills it, they get 100 to 200 bonus gold. So there's still the reward for a player to last hit the tower. However, if someone does, it's not hurting the rest of the team. The rest of the team still gets the regular gold they would have gotten if a creep killed it.
And it's reliable gold, too, which is really important, I think. Having that sort of insurance of not losing that gold is nice. So I think that's a really nice thing. And it's going to be nice for the supports. I mean, we've mentioned where they have to sort of maybe have to put out some other money to get their teams going. So the fact that they're going to be getting some of the share of the tower gold every time is going to be really important, I think.
Oh, yeah. No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Once again, another great change. And I'm glad that they kept the incentive for people to last hit it, because that's... Did a bird just run to your window?
No, a firework went off outside.
Oh! Almost
I don't
the
know
same
why.
thing.
But yeah, so fireworks. They
Well,
might
you
have.
know, May 31st is International Firework Day, as
They're
I've heard.
just so excited for the Dota patch, and we're doing such a great job that they're putting on a fireworks
That
display.
they set off just one little firework.
And there's the second one.
Oh,
That's
shoot.
nice.
Well, if we start
But,
hearing like a whole barrage of it, we'll have to take some cover or something. But indeed, moving along here, the backdoor protection now also reduces incoming damage by 25%. So just further saying, hey, dude, chill. Like, don't be doing this backdoor. And I think that's once again an indirect attack against Wisp Tiny combos. Just throwing it out there, or Wisp anything with the backdoor protection, because now you really are going to struggle to get those towers if you're trying to backdoor it, obviously. So I don't know. Any extra thoughts on that?
no, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
pretty straightforward as
nature's
well.
profits and such.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Here's one for not captain's mode. Heyo. So re-picking a random hero now re-adds the hero to the pool. Also, swapping a hero you random now costs you 100 gold. So,
I like it a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Just because it's silly that you just random and I'll pick this for me and I'll trade you, and then I get the hero I want and I get the bonus gold. Like, no, we don't.
play nice.
So, yeah.
Pick a hero. If you want a hero, pick a hero.
Oh, I random somebody I hate. Oh, pick me Animage and I'll take an extra 100 gold. Or I'll take the extra bonus gold. Like,
Now,
no.
I probably should Google this before I say it, but I will. Oh God! I just choked on
Just
something.
Google.
Hold on a second. I believe. Oh my God! I choked on something. I'm alive though. Don't worry. It was that interesting. Oh my.
Well, while J4Y dies, I got nothing. But we're moving into the Heroes
All right.
pretty
So
soon.
no, we're good. I believe if you pick a hero, you start with 625 gold. Is it? Please correct me if I'm wrong. This is why I wanted to Google it. Does that number sound right?
Fair enough.
I believe it's or is it 800 for a random hero? See, I think 100 is not necessarily the difference
The whole
between a
thing.
random and a not. Yeah, it's not the whole thing. Now, it's good to have a penalty, so that's why I shouldn't use exact numbers. What I should have said off the bat is it's not the whole thing. So, I mean, but it's good to have a penalty. I agree with you. It should, if you really want a certain hero or something, then by all means just pick it and don't just like, well, I kind of like 100 extra gold. Like, I'd rather you play a 50-minute game with a hero you like and you're good at than just 100 extra gold off the start. But
Yeah.
sorry for the choking, everyone. Jeez, that was very random, but it is past. Were you saying something before I came back?
I was just gonna say that I think there are some other things, like I was saying earlier, hinting at. There are even some things that we didn't mention. Maybe I should just go and talk about it now, so I can stop pumping up the.
Yeah, please do. Just get into it.
So obviously, like we mentioned earlier, Sylar with the Lone Druid going ham, picking up the armlet. Now no longer going to be a thing, because the Spirit Bearer now has its health drained by armlet when active. And I think that if you sort of just take this at face value, it looks like a really big nerf to Lone Druid. But I don't think it's going to be as bad as it sounds. I also don't think that the fact that Spirit Bear bounty increased from 100 to 300 is a massive deal either. Let's go ahead and think about the armlet. What does armlet solve? Jay, would you like to be the student today? Why would you build an
I
armlet?
usually am, so nothing's too out of the ordinary here.
We talked about it before.
Yes.
On an episode where I just decided it'd be great to bring him up because he was sort of like all of a sudden all powerful, and armlet was the only thing to build. But
What was your question?
why do you build armlet?
Well, I believe the reasons you told me, teacher, if I can remember correctly. You gained the armor, you gained the health regen, you gained, obviously, the flat damage, and there were no repercussions to having it, making him good for pushing towers, as well as just nice for single-target DPS and survivability in the lane.
Yeah, you literally get everything you want. You get attack speed, damage, you get survivability, and the health regen, which I think is really the thing that you don't normally wind up getting on the Lone Druid for that bear. So I think, again, at face value, this kind of sucks. All of a sudden, the all-powerful armlet is dead. Oddly enough, I think a lot of the pro players that will wind up putting in their 2 cents whenever they see the Lone Druid is they're like, you know what? It's typically what most people will do, but it's not necessarily always the best thing. Maelstrom will give you more damage in a team fight. You're not getting the survivability, obviously, but you're going to wind up getting more damage out of it. And when you start looking at some of the other really small changes that happened, like you mentioned earlier, the fact that the armor bonus from Assault Curious, which is a pretty standard Lone Druid item, can now stack with other things like that of Vladimir's Offering, which is an item that I happen to say that I really actually enjoy on the Lone Druid to get your bear a little bit tankier and you a little bit tankier. You also have the fact, I'm going to assume you're on board with me for that one. That makes sense. Yeah,
Definitely,
those two items.
Definitely.
Maybe here's the curveball. When you look at the buffs to mech, and the fact that the regeneration aura is increased from 500 to 750, the fact that the buckler is increased from 700 to 750, the headdress regeneration aura from 500 to 750. I'm pretty sure it's been done before. I seem to remember at least one instance where Lone Druids built a mech. But when you consider that mech and Gloves of Haste is almost the exact same cost as an armlet, the only thing you're losing out on there is the damage, but you're gaining the activatable heal, it's actually not that bad of a trade if you really need the survivability. When you look at the extra burn damage on Radiance, just because, again, I think Armlet it answered all of Lone Druid's Bear's problems perfectly. It was a little bit of everything you needed. It sort of fell off, but now you have this extra burn. I think what you're going to wind up seeing is the Lone Druid might be picked a little less. I honestly don't think it should be that big of a deal. I think really now you're just going to start to see a little bit wider variety of builds, and I think Armlet is obviously dead.
Well, yeah. We can definitely agree. Armlet's gone. That is no longer going to be a build on him. I mean, it definitely, because we definitely spoke a while, I think, about the comparison of that and Maelstrom and how different items would be built on him, and these other items are still amazing on him. Like Basher, Maelstrom, Assault Carrier, all these things are still really great on him. So it's not like not having access to this is going to destroy the hero, because this is absolutely not true. The hero himself has not been nerfed. He's still
Except
just as much.
Bounty. But that's not.
Yeah, that's not even a nerf. I mean, essentially, the bear is just as strong as he was before. Now you just got a different item build, and it's just not. And I don't want to even call this a nerf, the armlet thing. I want to call it a fix, because essentially that's how I see it. I feel like it never was intended to not drain on the bear. They're just like, oh, that's interesting, but let's just see how it plays out. And they're like, yeah, let's not do that. That's just way too, not really strong necessarily, but it's just people are just abusing that, and we just can't allow it to continue to happen, or he's going to never go away, maybe, or for a long time. So I believe it's a good fix. The bounty, I like how this is kind of progress. The previous big change to him is that the bear can no longer recall while taking damage, and now you get 200 extra gold when you kill him. So this really is going to punish Lone Druids that let their bear get out of position. I mean, you've really got to keep track of him and make sure he can get out of situations, or your 300 is a lot of gold. And a lot of the times, actually, especially even early on in the game, supports will pick up that kill. And giving them an extra 200 gold early in the game is huge. So another set of wards, maybe towards boots. I mean, that's a nice little change for them. So definitely a little more defensive they're going to have to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time we talked about it, I mentioned that he does something that no other offlaner can really do so well, and it's the fact that you can pull the creeps out of the lane. The supports might be able to stop you, and then you resummon your bear, and you just do it again, and you hope that it works out a little bit better. I did happen to see a game where a Lone Druid picked up the Poor Man Shield, so the two 150 cost agility items and the shield, to 100% block hero damage to try and deal with the fact that the bear is getting harassed. I really only think that this is a big deal really early on. Obviously, that's a huge amount of money in the opening minutes of the game, and this might stop Lone Druids from pulling creeps from the side. But I also think that the fact that especially Sylar showed in the G1, and something that you and I have mentioned before, coming from Heroes of Newerth, Wild Soul mid, not weird, that happened. So I think Lone Druid maybe sort of got limits placed on him, but I really sort of like the fact that he had limits placed on him, so that he is actually a more diversified hero, and he's still going to be powerful, he's still going to be huge, I think, but now we're going to get to see a little bit more variety.
Now, recently, have people still been building the Hand of Midas on this bear, or have they been
No.
just rushing Armlet at this
Just
point?
Armlet.
So now you might see the return of the Hand of Midas builds on him again, because that was obviously incredibly popular previously. Get that attack speed up, get your farm up, and then obviously go for your bigger items later in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem when you have the armlet fix and the bounty increase coming together is that now you really, it was nice before to have the survivability on the bear. Now it might be necessary to go for some early survivability. But like I said with mech, and like I said when I talked about Lone Druid the first time, Vlad's, both of these items are not just great for you. If you look at just the microcosm of Lone Druid, yeah, you're losing out. You know, if you do mech and gloves of haste, oh no, you don't have the damage. Or, you know, if you do with Vlad's, you're not getting the health regeneration on the bear because you're probably going to have it on the hero. But what you're gaining overall for your team is massive, and what you might see more is more sort of timing attack Lone Druids. If you run a mid and you pick up a mech or something like that, or you pick up a Vlad's with your ability to farm that middle lane, you're going to be able to turn that right into a tower push and try to set yourself up later. You get yourself and your bear so far ahead that he's harder to take down. And I know you're scoffing at the mech.
No, I'm just pulling out my list here of things BDLM has said that have not come to fruition, and I was getting ready to write this down. So you're saying mech on the bear?
I'm not
I'm not on the bear, on the druid himself.
It might not happen. I'm just saying that I think it's an option. I think like I said, I'm almost certain it's happened at least once before, and I don't think it's bad. I mean, here's another thing too, and this is something I was actually really proud of myself when I started sort of having my my revelation to how much I liked Lone Druid. I was in a game, and we were against a Phantom Lancer, and we were getting pushed down. I'm like, man, Maelstrom's not going to be enough. What can I build? And so my second or third item on Lone Druid's bear was a Battle Fury. Apparently, this had been done in professional games as well, and some professional players really didn't like it. Some of them were like, and obviously you're wasting a part of you're wasting mana regeneration, essentially. You're getting some health regeneration, a lot of damage, really, and then, of course, the cleave. But it winds up working out. I think Lone Druid is a hero that is really sort of a unitasker for being able to just, root people in place and push towers. But really, the item choices on him can be really varied, because that thing is always going to be true. Obviously, attack speed is going to help make the roots happen more often, but it's always going to be true that that's what he can do and that's what he's good for. So you can look to go these other things, I think.
Yeah,
so I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it's a possibility, and I know I'm going to try it.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful.
Good luck.
As far as your argument's concerned that it's happened once, let's just say Armlet Dazzle's happened once. Doesn't mean it should happen regularly. It just means it's happened once. Dendy did win that game, by the way, but that's another story. But yeah, the Battle Fury thing reminded me of watching a pro game, and there was a Lifestealer against the Phantom Lancer, and he originally had a Battle Fury. He sold it for, I believe, some kind of single DPS item, and he thought he had enough with his Mjolnir, or Mjolnir, excuse me, to be enough, but it wasn't. It just wasn't enough. So he had to resell the item he bought to rebuy the Battle Fury, and they still ended up losing. But it was just like that reminder of, like, there's just some items that just really are so much stronger in a situation than others, despite it being an overall weaker item. You just need it to accomplish a certain task.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I was really proud of myself when I bought the Battle Fury, and it worked, and we won. Because that's not something that makes it makes sense, but the first time you hear it, you're like, why would you do something like that? Really, like with the armlet, I think the first time I heard a caster talk about it was Toby, and he just didn't know what to say, because he couldn't call it bad, because obviously there's a reason that this paid professional is doing it, but he couldn't really figure out why it was good either. And so I think it's like a really great sign of getting better at games when you really start to think about, instead of these heroes have these item builds and you do this every game, you start to think about, well, what do we need? What does the team need? What can we do that we have to get that? If this person's getting this, then I don't have to get this item, so I can build this instead. So I'm really curious to see what happens. Like I said, I think he's still going to be prevalent. I think he's still going to be a part of the metagame, and I actually think that he might be more interesting to watch now because it's not just going to be Neon Bear. He's going to go back to Raiden Bear, Chain Lightning, everything.
Not Shiny Bear, though. Or maybe you'll tell me something about Radiance. I mean, that's always a possibility.
I mean, it's a small buff, and obviously you're still squishy with it. I mean, it's possible. I mean, it's not unviable. So we'll see.
I don't think that's a word.
I
feel like it's non-viable or something.
Uninviable.
Okay. Uninviable. Sure, why not? Did you have any other ones you want to jump around with before I go in my order?
I think that's the big one.
Okay. Well, I knew that was yours, obviously.
Actually, I will because just to talk about what I was saying earlier with the buffs, the offlaners. I mean, we can just really quick run through them because some of them are really uninteresting, and you might not have even wrote them down.
Probably not.
Bounty Hunter track mana cost decreased, so it's a little bit easier for him if he doesn't get items. You look at the Ravage AoE being the max radius at all levels. I LOL was looking at Lich for an offlaner back in the day, but I mean, I guess really those are the two big
offlaners
that can't jungle, and that's what's important is I think these are sort of small, and obviously the AoE experience increase is like a little push to be like, hey, you don't have to. It's not as big of a gamble to not pick a jungle capable offlaner. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's it, I guess.
All right, there's a couple. Yeah. All right. Maybe it's time then. Time to not duel, but instead go down this list. So, alphabetical order, of course. Ancient Apparition, sitting pretty at the top of the mountain. And so he's gotten a few changes. Oh, by the way, this has been called the Patch of Scepters. So be prepared for a few of those to come along. And they're so very interesting. I think we had a discussion about this the last time there was a big patch, like talking about. I remember we were reading like some kind of patch notes, but they weren't like the official ones. They were like what they were messing around with, and we're like, wouldn't that be a cool Aghanim ult if they did that instead? Like the Lion guy getting the double ult if they were close enough or something. Like just neat things like that. And we'll get into some of those later. But I'll just start with oh, you had something.
Can I? Feel free. Just to share, I read through these. And I think the day before, I had read a group of user submitted, or like, a community built patch list of what people would want to see. The actual patch notes feel trollier than the ones by the community. Like, some of these things are just like, what? Yeah, yeah, let's do that. This sounds awesome. Let's do it. But anyway, go ahead. Some of them are just so much fun. It's going to be really neat to see.
Well, this one's not as fun, but this one's definitely interesting. So, Value and Scepter upgrade for Ancient Apparition. Oh, which he didn't have. Did he even have one before? I don't believe so. Yeah, I think this is brand new for him. So he can get Aghanims now, and it makes the duration of your Ice Blast go from 8, 9, 10 to 17 at all ranks. So essentially doubling the duration. Now, remember, when this all is on you, not only is it ticking away slowly but surely, but it's also allowing you to shatter people. So for 17 seconds in a fight, you have to get someone 12% or below their health. Pretty dang amazing. And also, I'll just put the other Ice Blast. So the ultimate AoE, base AoE's increased from 225 to 275 radius, so a little 50 extra base radius. And then his Ice Vortex cooldown went from 6 to 5 seconds. But obviously, the main thing is here is the Aghanim. So feel free to jump in.
I think the bigger thing, as soon as I keep reading this, I want to make sure that I don't say something stupid. I mean, it's possible.
It'll happen one day.
So obviously your healing is reduced while under the effect of this. Yes.
You can't heal. It's not reduced, you can't heal at all.
Okay. Correct. So let's go back. We want to talk about some of the heroes, thanks to Dota Academy, that have absurd win rates. Slark's cool, right? 80% is stupid. But he's only played in what? I think I said the total was 30. Well, let's take a look at our buddy Chen here. Has a win rate of 58%.
Nice.
Rather high. Considering that he's been picked and banned 2,181 times. So you have this huge number of uses, picks and bans, and his win rate is still rather high across the board. I think this is really the beauty of the Ultimate. It's not just the fact that, I mean, yeah, you're going to open up this window that you can potentially cause someone to shatter, but you're also, if you're able to catch a lot of people in it, this is an extensive amount of time that they can't catch heals from Chen, from Mech, from Treant Protector, from any other source. The fountain. So you're just going to be playing your Invoker. You're going to go Exort, and you're going to go Refresher Orb, and you're just going to be Sunstriking like mad, trying to fish for that person that's under the effect for 17 seconds.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Screw Zeus. I'm going to go Invoker with Refresher. Why would I not do that? I like the challenge. I like the challenge of sniping people. It's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Zeus is too easy. You just press the button and you hit everyone. What's the fun in that? I like to go fishing for my kills.
I mean, obviously this is Ancient Apparition, so it's like typically been played as a support, typically been used for the additional damage, AoE, the Chilling Touch. So odds of him getting an Oghanims are probably few and far between.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the fair thing to counter-argue that is I remember watching a decent amount of Dota 1 back in the day. Now, of course, the meta has changed substantially, but he was ran mid a lot back in Dota 1, actually. He's obviously a pretty dang strong laner. Get that cold feet that's going to harass him out of the lane, or they're going to get frozen so they can't last hit as well. And you get level 6 really quick for side lane ganks, which is really nice. So, and I used to play him mid all the time, so that should say something, obviously. But like you said, he's obviously normally runs the support, so not going to see it probably as often. Kind of like the Ogre Magi with the August upgrades. Like, okay, that's sweet, but how often are we really going to see that happen? So, but I feel like he's got an okay chance of being run middle. Not great, but he's got an okay chance. Or if a game goes super late, instead of building mech or something, maybe he'll just have started building towards that. Like, you sometimes see Leshraks go more tanky items instead of support items, even if they're support Leshraks, just so they can help out in the fight more.
Yeah, I mean, I think the likelihood is low, and this is kind of the nice thing, too. You don't want to have the Oghanims be so good that you want to build it every game. Obviously, this is very situational. I feel like it's much directed towards, like, a Chen. But I'm definitely curious to see, let's say, that situation comes up, if that's something that the Ancient Apparition decides to go for, or if the team just says, you know what, that's obviously a huge investment of money to put on this one hero, maybe we just try and fight through it and hope for the best, and we go up against that 60% win rate, We'll see.
We will see, but
I
definitely agree. He's not super. He's not super. No, he's just not. He's not. It's not going to be game breaking. That's exactly right. It should not be so good that you're going to absolutely build it every game. You want it to be a tough choice for players. They really have to think logically for the game what works best. But I think we've kind of exhausted that one. This is only A. We got the whole alphabet to go through here.
Yeah, we got a while to go still.
So let's kind of. Some of these aren't so long, but Bloodseeker, who actually has a little bit to talk about,
Can I?
Yes.
Sorry. You said before this thing that you didn't have any jokes prepared.
Oh, geez.
And you felt bad about it. Here's your last chance, Jay. Here's you can save the game with the joke. Batrider Vision got decreased from 18 to 1800 during the day, 800 at night, to 1400 during the day, and 800 at night. The only other hero with vision reduction is Night Stalker. But do you have anything corny you'd like to say about that?
No, I don't. What the hell?
It's blind as a bat.
Oh my god. Oh no.
You could have had it all, Jay. You could have had it all.
How did that not just... Oh my god, that's perfect. That is perfect humor.
I think that is actually, very quickly, really worth mentioning when you consider that there are Bat Riders that pop smokes Firefly, and then just go ham across the map, looking to just blink on top of anybody and pull them to certain death. And I think that's sort of a great way to bring down Batrider, because before, what was sort of being messed with to make him viable or not was the strength gain, and then of course now he can't attack targets he's lassoing. So I think it's a good way to try and control that. I think Vision is, and it's appropriate because he's a bat and bats are blind. You can only whisper so many directions.
You did, and I just really couldn't. I just couldn't connect the dots on that one, unfortunately.
I tried.
You did. I thank you for allowing me to almost get a joke that was decently funny for a change.
And appropriate. And
appropriate. How often does that happen? We're not getting back to Alchemist and Easter eggs again. Let's just say that. Alright, so Bloodseeker. Got some interesting little changes here. His thirst now oh, by the way, before I say this, have you seen, or I guess I'm talking to the whole podcast in general too, the Chinese client version of Bloodseeker and how hilarious his moves and his ultimate are. It's a rainbow. It's called like Rainbow Striker. Oh my god, it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
I haven't seen it, but
you haven't?
I've heard it's ridiculous.
It's so good. Obviously they cannot show blood in their game, so they have to go with something a little. I didn't know they'd go the opposite direction and go like Happy Fun Times or something, but apparently that is their choice. But okay, back to reality here. So the thirst is his buff that he gets. Now gives you bonus 3, 4, 5, 6 armor while active, which, as you know, if you play him, gets activated pretty often during fights, so really nice buff there. His Blood Rage dispels the target before applying its buff, which is something pretty interesting that I'll talk a little bit more about. And then Rupture damage is now health loss instead of just straight up damage. So the main bullet point of that, obviously, it causes it to go through magic immunity now. So, I want to start off by saying I think the Blood Rage dispel thing is really neat. It's not amazing, however, it definitely can have its benefits depending on who you're ganking. Some buffs can be really hard to get through or to deal with, and now that you're able to dispel it just by casting your spell, which you're normally going to cast on them anyways to get the silence on them, just that much better overall. Unfortunately, I'm kind of actually struggling to think of. I had an example and I've lost.
Well,
it.
I think the big one is actually the fact that you can remove Ethereal.
Yes, Ethereal is part of that. Is counted as that. Yeah, that is definitely huge because obviously he's a big physical damage dealer. So being able to now attack him is definitely going to be nice. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say I really like all of these. I think they're reasonable. And I think they're good because obviously, I mean, you can have your pub Bloodseeker do just fine, but I think a lot of this is actually a really nice way to make him viable in the competitive scene. Because I think, just the 2 points there that you can now dispel Ethereal and that you can do damage through magic immunity, I think are great. Because in the competitive scene, I think both of those things are common to come across and just completely destroy his potential to do damage. So I really like all of these, and I think it would be a lot of fun to see a competitive Bloodseeker. And I think the fact that they essentially buffed Force Staff Bloodseeker is great.
I didn't
because they also decreased the cost of the recipe.
Yeah.
So
no, 900.
New meta.
It used to be, I think, 800 or 850, and then they increased it to 1,000, and now they've decreased it again. So they've kind of tinkered with that a bit. They're not exactly sure how they feel yet, but I guess they want to come back down a bit. Yeah, sure. There you go, another indirect buff.
That one's slightly more trolly, but
I don't know. I see like every single Bloodseeker build it, so I don't know if everyone's trolling on Blood. Well, they're playing Bloodseeker. Let's be fair, which may not now be a troll thing. Maybe now that's a real deal here.
Speaking of which, the sniper buff. No, go ahead.
Good God, maybe not. Is that a thing?
Go ahead.
All right, I'll just go to my list and swear that I actually. Yeah. Anyways, back to me. Clockwork. His power cogs no longer knock back magic immune targets, so obviously you pick Clockwork for initiation and disruption, and now you're not nearly as great as disrupting. So I mean, yeah, magic immune, not like all the time. Obviously, it's kind of very situational where that happens. But that being said, it's really great to be able to, when someone pops that BKB to make him at least a couple seconds CC'd and not able to do anything or to get to someone. So that's kind of a little bit of a deal.
Yeah, I mean it's like you're not going to be able to rage GP, or you're going to be able to rage GP now.
Yes.
On the life stealer.
Good point.
So it's unfortunately a nerf. I mean, I certainly understand why Clockwork's good. Like I'm not trying to like throw him under the bus or anything, but I never really thought of him as being so strong that he needed nerfs. But if that's, I mean, that's fine, right? Like that's one of those things where like I read it and I'm like, okay, that's fair enough. The next hero, which you better mention.
Crystal Man. Did I win?
That's right.
Yes. Yeah, that was my next one. Oh god, I knew you were going to be happy after that. I mean, they're not. Well, okay, I'm going to hold my tongue because you're probably going to have a different opinion. But I was about to say I don't think they're huge changes. But the Brilliance Aura mana regen increased from 0.5, 1.52 to 1.5. So it went up 0.5 every rank. I don't need to see those numbers. That's a lot easier. My favorite part of it, Freezing Field Explosion AoE increased from 215 to 230. Whew! Big change there. And then the Aghanim Scepter Freezing Field attack speed reduction aura increased from -20 to -50. So that's actually a pretty decent, nice, helpful thing there, to be honest. So, go ahead.
I think this is a great revisit of Crystal Maiden, just to realize why or why not she is or isn't good. I feel like this is the only way you can really mess with Crystal Maiden without breaking her one way or the other, because I think just as a hero, she is First Blood. That's it. Like, that's what she's good at. She's good at harassing, she's good at being able to apply the slow and the root to get First Blood. And that's when she was really popular, when you were able to take advantage of the fact that the slow on Crystal Nova was 5 seconds long. That gets nerfed, Crystal Maiden falls off. So, Frostbite and Crystal Nova, I feel like, are super strong spells. You can't really buff those because they're great of their own merit, and so you have to look to go for the Brilliance Aura. I think the big thing here is that you could either say that you can get away with getting fewer points into it, or you just, because you get double the effect, this is essentially a 1 mana regeneration increase for Riley herself. Mm-hmm. So I feel like she's one of these supports that really has probably one of the harder times trying to farm any kind of gold. There are some that can get away with it just fine, like Train Protector can actually do really well farming around in the jungle while being a support to a lane. Crystal Maiden really not so much, because she has crappy damage and a crappy attack animation, and she's really slow. So I like all these changes. I don't know that they're actually going to matter. I was wondering, like, I kind of want to just like put 1 point into my ulti now, stack up some creep camps in the jungle, and if you're like in the Radiant jungle, you pull those 2 or 3 camps together and you drop the ulti, and all of a sudden you have items and it's great and magical. But I feel like your carries would probably like those stacks better.
I ult and creep stacks all the time with Crystal Maiden, I'm not gonna lie.
I'm actually, this almost makes me sad, to be honest. Like, I like that she now is going to be a little bit more harassy. She's going to potentially be able to farm a little bit easier because she'll have more mana to work with. But I think one of my personal biggest problems with Crystal Maiden is just how god-awful slow she is. And they buffed Yule's Scepter slightly, increasing the movement speed, but now that's clearly redundant on Crystal Maiden because now she has even more mana regeneration. So you're discouraged from getting it even more, I feel like.
Yeah, you definitely wouldn't do that.
It's weird. I guess I can't. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. They're buffs, so I should be happy. But I don't know that they're going to make me start playing Crystal Maiden again.
I disagree with you a little bit on her purpose. I mean, I definitely agree. She's a very strong laner, and that's probably one of the big reasons you pick her up. She's going to have control early on with this slow and immobilize. Really nice off the bat. Then the aura early game. But I feel like we have such a different opinions, I think, on the ultimate. I personally think it's very strong in the right situation. If you can align it, and previously back in the day, Enigma was the big deal, no longer even mentioned in games. But Magnus is kind of taken over as that AoE CC, and I feel like a Crystal Maiden plus Magnus combo could be truly devastating given the right situation. Now, when I say that, and then I was starting to think, I'm like, well, you could say the same about like Witch Doctor. His ult with a Magnus ult could be devastating too. I mean, like there's things that really it could go that way, I guess, for a lot of heroes. But I really think late game her ultimate is nothing to. I was gonna say throw a shoe at. That doesn't make any sense.
I think Scoff is the more adult.
That sounds better than throw a shoe at. I don't know why you would throw a shoe at anything. But I don't know. I'm not talking about the AUG upgrade because believe me, I don't expect her to ever have Nogginums. But I'm just saying in general.
I mean, yeah, like. Again, that's sort of my problem when you look at her versus other supports, and you just look at, like we talked about Skywrath Mage, and part of the reason I liked him so much was just his innate movement speed, and some of his other just base stats. Crystal Maidens are sort of so bad, and sort of the difficulty in being able to deny well with her, and the movement speed, that you're saying, yeah, Freezing Field's great if you have great position, but even with Tranquil Boots, you're still so slow that finding that really great position is difficult. So, I understand where you're coming from, and I think now, especially if you're going to be playing the Crystal Maiden and you're not really running some crazy strategy where you need mana on everybody everywhere, that you're probably just going to wind up putting more points into the ulti earlier if you weren't before. But I think this is... Like I was saying, I don't think you can really affect Crystal Nova or Frostbite. I think this is how you have to buffer, and it'll be interesting. I feel like she's sort of on the cusp of being viable, and maybe this will be a little bit to help push her.
Give her 10 movement speed and see what happens. Give her 10 move speed.
Oh, give me 5. Just give me 5.
1 foot. 1 foot faster than the other, and I'll be okay with it.
I'll be honest with you. That's why I was even thinking, like, I wonder if you could, like, get away with farming the Ancients with your ultimate now. Because it's just like, if you get yourself drums, that's something, right? Those are great stats for you to have. It's a great item to have for your team. Yeah, let's go for it. And maybe you can look at it that way because Brilliance Aura makes it a little bit easier for her to farm, that she can get something to compensate for her weaknesses. You get yourself an Ethereal Blade, you get yourself a drum, something like that. I mean...
Those are big different items. Those... E-Blade or drums?
Or not Ghost Scepter, pardon me.
Okay.
E-Blade.
I'm like, what?
Get carried away here. I like I said, I can't really look to gift horse in the mouth. I'm just not really sure how sizable the idea of Crystal Maiden difference will be.
Yeah, these other supports are obviously very, very strong, so it's going to take a lot for a team to want to bring her back. But I don't know. I want to just really quickly, Darkseer, just a 2-second extra cooldown vacuum. Nothing at all game breaking, but obviously he's picked quite a bit still, so it's a little way to make him not as disruptive in team fights as he was before. So, anyways, now on to the arm raising. Dazzle! Our friend Gina Beam would be very happy. Well, should be happy about this. He used to be Mr. Dazzle himself. Mm-hmm. But the first change, Shadow Wave target count increased from 3345 to 3456, so you get an extra unit you get to heal and do damage with. And then, of course, the kind of bigger one, Shallow Grave can now be cast on magic immune allies. So, yeah, wow, I'm honestly surprised it's taken this long to become a change, to be honest. I don't know.
I think it's crazy strong, which is why... I mean, that's a sizable change.
Yeah.
Sizable change. So, I also kind of like that because of the Shadow Wave. I mean, clearly you're bringing up to 6 targets. You're assuming that there's creeps that you're going to want to heal. So this sort of plays into the push strategy that much more. And I think BKB is one of those items where you rush it when you want to end the game because you want to be unstoppable in team fights. And so when you think about how now you can now Shallow Grave somebody that's magic immune, if you're going into these team fights early on, trying to press your advantage, trying to win, you're gonna have a 10-second BKB charge going, or 9 second, 8 second, whatever, and then you're also going to now have this invulnerability to death for that duration of the Shallow Grave. I think that's a really interesting combo, and I think that pushes Dazzle to a place that really makes him crazy unique and interesting as far as push lineups go, and I'm really curious to see if he gets picked up. Because every once in a while he will get picked, and it's like, meh, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think this is a very interesting change and has potential.
What I just see from coming from that is Dazzle Lifestealer play. I think he might be a support run with Lifestealer, maybe a little bit more often now. Just, give him while he's raging, give him that nice little Shallow Grave, and he's going to heal right back up to full without having to worry about death. I mean, obviously, you can do it with pretty much any carry, and it's going to work probably just fine. But I don't know. Since Lifestealer is so popular, I guess that's why I mentioned it. And Lifestealer's probably not going anywhere anytime soon, so that might. Or will he? We'll read on. We'll read on. But yeah, that's Dazzle coming back in with a little swag. There's a couple here that are not really huge changes. Do you want me to go into like Disruptor just briefly? I mean, he's not huge. Essentially, right now Thunderstrike is 3 strikes over 4, and now it's going to be 4 strikes over 6 seconds. The damage gets decreased per strike, but it's more strikes, obviously. And
it's overall damage increase, correct? My numbers are correct.
Yes, or no, you're right. No, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
It's not by much, mind you. It's like 25 damage more. But I think the main point of that is you now have 6 seconds of vision of the target instead of 4 seconds, which is nice. Good for time lapse to bring him back and whatnot. You want to do with that.
I like that he's right next to the hero that I really want to see the combination with.
Oh, the combination.
See what I'm throwing down? What I'm throwing down here?
Well, he was next on the list, so I was going to bring him in here. Mr. Doom. Not Doombringer. His name is just Doom nowadays. But, so, before we get into the items, let's just say Doom now disables Feast, Backtrack, Dispersion, Juxtapose, Bristleback, and Bloodbath. So, essentially, all those passives on heroes that are going to allow them either to, like, survive or take less damage in a fight, more or less, now disabled is pretty dang nice in general. And now, of course, the Aghanim Scepter getting reworked. So now his Doom duration no longer counts down while the target is within 550 range of Doombringer. And let me tell you, from the Reddits I've read off this change alone, everyone's talking about Race Card Doombringer. Everyone's talking about Race Card Doombringer. Because obviously you're already a fast mofo. So keeping up with someone should not be an issue. And, well, go ahead. You said you wanted to talk about it.
I think this hero in general this is another one where the Assault Curious and the Vlad stacking I think is actually interesting again, because when you look at how art style made the Aura Doom kind of a thing back in the day with Dare, I think he now is more survivable. He can be in the middle of these fights. He can last longer. And when you consider that the old Aghanim Scepter, I believe it was just a second increase on the ultimate, you're going to get an increase, basically, from the... Like, this is a buff. Flat out, I would say. So, I really like this. I think it obviously has a lot more synergy with other heroes. I think it's kind of funny with Kinetic Field. And really, any of those types of abilities that hold people in play. LOL Refresher, and then you just keep people nearby. You just got 2 people taking all the damage. This is crazy talk. But Radavatos.
Oh boy,
that's where I'm gonna end it. I'm just gonna.
I mean, he does need the
curious.
mana. I do like mana on him.
That's
why Shiva's Guard is his typical go-to item.
Yeah, I guess that might be where you go instead. Fair enough. But, But
I could understand Ravatos. That would make sense. Now, the old Ogs, of course, just increased duration flat out, and I guess the only way you could see this as a nerf is if you're in that situation where you're dooming them and you expect them to run off and die, and you would have liked to have the extra seconds instead.
I mean, the range for the cast is 550, so you literally have to be stopped immediately for it to not add up, And when you consider that you get movement speed from Scorched Earth, like you said,
Phase boots is
You
very typical.
phase boots, drums. I think even if you're looking back to the art style, Dare, Doom. I think these all make a ton of sense, and I think that this is a great.
And Oggs hasn't been really picked up on him. He's really been more building those Ori or tanky items, so now this might bring it back for him.
And two, I mean, I think when he's gotten played, like he certainly has that niche, and I think when you think about how he's, the old like Aura Doombringer, it wasn't even really about Doom, like because it's like one target silence is cool and all, but maybe we can do that with other heroes, or other heroes might be more valuable. I think this is a really nice change, and I hope it helps bring him back a little bit more. He pops up once and again, but I think it's really cool.
And seriously, don't discount the disabling the passives. I mean, that really makes it that much better on top of everything else. You're making these heroes that normally have like backtrack or something else to survive during the fight. Now that's taken out of the equation, so they're really hurting for it.
I think Feast is the big one, just because that's obviously you're trying to build yourself tanky, and Feast gets better if you have more health. So I think that's the huge one of all those listed there. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool overall.
Yeah, Doom, I don't know. I mean, he's obviously always been a pretty strong hero, really easy to jungle or even lane if you absolutely need to, but I definitely think this could be just a nice addition. Maybe bring some of those Doom players back from the grave. I don't know. From hell, I guess that makes more sense.
Wow.
I don't know.
That's where they go, huh? All of them. If you've
all of them. You've heard me. So, moving on along. Dragon Knight. His Corrosive Breath passive from level 1, Elder Form, now carries over to level 2, and it says in parentheses, the DPS. Now, that makes me question, does it work on towers still?
I would like to hope so. I think that's the point.
Yeah, I thought so too, but it wasn't completely specific, so I wasn't 100% sure. But I believe that's the reason, because obviously the reason they're doing this is people are so afraid to level their level 2 alt until they either need to kill a 3 or 4 stack of Ancients, or they're about to hit 16 and they need to just level it up. So it's nice to give it incentive to allow you to still get that tower pushing kind of move, I guess. That was pretty good explanation, actually, for a change. I know I don't do it often, but that was not bad. Not bad at all. So, we'll move along here. Drow, that's not even worth it. True Shot Aura barely increased. Whatever. Not a big deal. Earthshaker. Oh, yeah. Coming back in. Turn rate improved from 0.4 to 0.6. Fissure range increased from 12 to 1300, so even farther on that. Echo Slam now considers illusions as heroes, so apparently this affects Ogg Scepter upgrade as it does extra damage for each hero in the area. So now this is a weird buff because once again it's another Ogg Scepter related thing, and we have not seen a lot of Ogg Scepter Earthshaker play, to be honest. So while obviously that's kind of directed a lot towards heroes like Phantom Lancer and I guess Naga and other ones that aren't played as much, but Phantom Lancer mostly. That would be really nice normally. I mean, it's not like we even see that combo happening now, so why do you think they did this change?
So it only counts as a hero. Did they count as units before? Did they not?
They counted as regular units.
Okay, so it's really okay. So just
it's really just for Oggs.
I don't know. Whatever.
It sounds cool, but then it's like, oh wait.
Yeah. It's maybe like the AA thing again, where it's like super situational. I think I've personally never liked Earthshaker. That's probably blasphemy. I don't know. I just never liked him. I did like seeing him with the Visage and with the Jakiro. I thought that was really cute. And now getting the increased range and the turn rate. Those basic stats really do matter quite a bit. Yeah. So it's nice that he got buffed. I'm not really. I think they're good buffs. I'm not excited about it because I don't like Earthshaker. Personally.
Shake and bake, bud. Shake and bake.
I know.
You can't,
I should.
Oh, I love to shake and bake, man. It's so good. But it's true. It's kind of an all-in with him. You either get it all or you get no glory at all. I mean, he's great for ganking too. He's a good roamer, but I mean, he's kind of got his limits. I understand. And it's like I feel like this is like coming a patch too late because now he's a little better against Phantom Lancer and. Phantom Lancer's gonna start falling off here.
But. Who is afraid of Phantom Lancer anymore, really?
Right. Exactly.
Not many
Or
people. I feel
Naga,
like
no one cares. I mean, the illusion heroes are kind of starting to become a thing of the past here.
Manta style, but like you're gonna
Right.
build that for
Yeah,
Manta style?
that's not even worthy of a debate there. So
Yeah.
anyway, there's his little changes regardless. Uh, let's see what I was going down to. The next big one I would say would be Enigma down this list here, getting a change in Malefice actually. Kind of interesting in that. So now instead of it being different durations, now it's always 6 seconds or 3 ticks, even from level 1. The total damage, and I just wrote out the total damage, is 75, 120, 165, 210. And the stun duration as you level is a quarter second up to 1 second for total for each tick. So you get the 3 ticks now, but it's only a quarter second instead of, I believe it was just one. It was 1 second for 1 tick. So it's more disruptive. It's kind of like more like, I guess I feel like it's a buff for sure. I feel like you want it to be more disruptive. While it's level 1 at least, it's less time overall. It's still at the end of the day, and I think actually rank 2 it's also less time, but it's still at the end of the day, like I said, more disruptive.
Would a rank 2 it would be enough because it's 3 ticks of 0.5 seconds, so it's more than. Oh wait, but no.
Originally
Okay,
it's
never
2
mind.
ticks of 1
Silly.
second. So NT on the math, bro. NT.
Yeah, art major. I still think I like it too. I think it probably winds up helping his laning capabilities. And again, maybe, I mean, obviously, you don't really need to help heroes that can retreat into the jungle, but this might be another one of those, like, maybe small things where you're trying to make it so that the lane is much more attractive as opposed to abandoning. I think the Enchantress buff is straightforward, but I think it's worth mentioning. Nice little attack range increase. You have to be loving the Shredder buffs, I imagine.
Oh, we're not there yet, my friend.
Oh, are you still on?
Well, I guess we are about to. Yeah, I guess we're there. Well, you went backwards, so I guess I was a little confused.
I just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, the 25 on the Aghanim's range.
Yeah.
So once again, another Aghanim's play coming in. So okay, Goblin Shredder. These are like I do, by the way. Yes, I do love the buffs. It's kind of like what happened to like Bat Rider a while ago. It's just like across the board, he's just better now. Not like amazing buffs like, oh my god, there's 2 chakrams that fly out from him, but it's just better. So he gets 3 base strength increased. So a little tankier up front. Int growth increased from 1.8 to 2.4 is really big actually late game. Really adding to that mana pool later on in the game is really nice. The initial mana cost shotgun rescaled from 125, 150, 175 to 75, 125, 175. So taking off 50 initial mana costs off a very spammable spell early on is very helpful. And it's the early on where he really struggles with mana. Once you get that Bloodstone up on him, really mana's not much of an issue at all. It's
once he gets to the point where he can start suiciding himself?
yes, of course. Just coming in there with his little chain and just suicide next to his team. That's the dream. And then the shotgun move speed increased from 800 to 900, which is also really nice. 100 extra speed on that's actually very great, considering it's not slow, but it's definitely not fast either. So moving that up to 900 now, going to be easier to get in the path of people or get to the team fight quicker without them being able to dodge it.
I like him. I think this might, obviously, I mean, there were times where he got picked up for fun, or maybe not for fun. I mean, there were competitive matches, but it wasn't like all of a sudden a new thing. I would like to see him. I think he's a fun hero to watch, and I think this is potential to move him into a place where he gets
so
played.
fun to watch. Oh my god,
he is.
He makes games really interesting. Just his positioning, the way he kites teams around, and they try to kill him and they can't do it, is just wonderful. But yeah, I definitely was happy, and I'm so happy about the next change. Oh my god, am I so happy about the next change. Gyrocopter's flat cannon cooldown increased from 20 to 30 seconds. Wabam! Take that.
He was almost as bad as Anti-Mage for me. He was getting there.
Exactly.
I didn't enjoy Rapier every game kind of thing. I think it's fair. I think it's obviously a really big thing, but
I mean, at the end of the day, he's still got his team fight potential. You didn't take it away. But
he's still a great hero, and I don't think that's any. I think it's fair.
Exactly. It's very
Thanks.
fair. It's a good way to maybe de-incentivize. Oh my god, that was a horrible way of English. To make players not want him as much. But no, like I said, he's still got his great ultimate for team fights. He's still got Flat Can to use at least for the initial burst of the fight. I mean, it's only going to matter in drawn out fights at that point. So yeah, I don't think that's going to take him out of competitive play. It's just it's a like you said, it's fair. It's good. Good
Mhm.
change. So nice to see that. Huskar, here we go. Been waiting all night to talk about this guy, huh? Not really though. I really actually don't care that much about him, but I mean, poor guy. He
Poor guy.
he deserves a little love. But all right, I'll throw it out. So first thing to note, because of these changes, he's removed from captain's mode. So we need to see how this works out before we let him back in. But his base strength is increased by 3, so a little nice tankiness up front. Burning Spear's DPS increased by about, well, it's reworked, so it's a little bit more DPS, I'll just put it that way. His life break actually gets a bit nerfed here. The health cost increased from 35, 30, 25% of his health to 40, 35, 30, so 5% extra health cost now to use his ulti. And then they reworked Berserker's Blood. So his passive, it used to give attack speed and damage per stack. Now it gives magic resist and attack speed, and it gives more attack speed than it previously did per stack, and it gives you up to 7% magic resist per stack. So essentially, the weaker you are, you're not doing more damage, you're attacking faster, you're not doing more physical damage, but you're getting that much harder to kill later as you're lower health, which is actually pretty damn nice, but I'll let you say your thoughts on it.
It's weird. I mean, I like all these. I think it's interesting to note that bringing his base strength up by 3 actually makes strength his highest attribute, whereas before it
Oh,
was agility. Weird. So I mean that's nice. Obviously the DPS increase is nice. The health cost increase is interesting. It's not like I think going to break him, but I still I think it's nice that the burning spears because of the attacking because of Berserker's blood is going to give you more magic resist. My problem comes in where you still have the old problem of I'm Husker, we've just ran into the enemy team with a smoke, so I'm going to leap on them, and then they're going to Lena, Lion, and Necrolite ult me, and I'm dead. And that's it. So it's almost like you don't want to use the life break right away, which maybe makes sense since you're using your, you would obviously not want to be at full health in order to do that self-damage. But I don't know. I think if you don't use that life break as the initiate, you hold on to it for a little bit. You wait till you're down to like half health, then you look to life break somebody. That could obviously be important and help you against the lions, the Lenas, the necrolites. But if you're like initiating with a life break, you're looking to use it that way, then you still run into the same problem.
yeah, life break. It's so much better when you're hurt already, obviously, because it's current health instead of max health. So the more hurt you are, well, it's your current health. Excuse me. So yeah, you're really at lower health, barely using any health to do a ton of damage to the enemy, which is really nice. And that's why sometimes you see troll Oghanims on him, just so he can jump around left and right to people just all day. But I really at really close to max stacks, he's got about 80% magic resist or so. I mean, you were talking about like Lean and Lion ults, 80% reduction on top of any other magic armor he's already got is pretty substantial. I mean, yeah, he's really hurt, but if he's late game got a couple decent items, his low health, especially like a heart or something, is still decent enough that you probably can survive. Now, of course, not Necrolite ult, but or Axe ult or something. But you know what I mean? Like it might be enough that, or at least it'll help against the nukes, like people like using like Dragon Slave and stuff like that. Like you'll be a lot better off against them.
I just realized how much crazy better, or like how crazy good BKB is going to be on him now.
Oh yeah.
Because popping the BKB will stop you from taking the damage from life breaking. So this is the point where you BKB, you life break, la 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 la, you get your attacks up, you're stacking your magic resist, you have your BKB wear off, and now you're pretty tanky at this point for magic damage. And when you go back, you look at his basic stats, like I was saying before, 20 agility with an agility gain of 2.5, which is equal to his health gain.
starts with 2 armor, so as he's leveling up, he's getting a decent amount of armor. He actually gets pretty tanky. Obviously, you change a hero this much anyway, you would probably remove him from Captain's mode, but I actually really want to see where he goes from this, and I think he might have some potential.
The big might, the big question mark. We like to hope. We're very optimistic, I think, in our approaches to these heroes, and I think Ice Frog is too. He's trying to find ways to bring him back in somehow, and this might be his answer. Because before he was just like, you know what, I'm going to try to do as much damage as possible. And I accept my fate. I'm going to die after I ulti, but I'm just trying to bring people down with me. Now it's like, well, I'm going to try to do a ton of damage, but I may actually survive because he is getting more attack speed as well from this change. So getting that lifesteal passive, which very commonly you'll see players do, he'll get life back faster. And, that might actually help in addition to the magic to his survivability as well. So just more thoughts on that. Now granted, he's not going to be hitting as hard, like I said, so you're not going to be like annihilating people like he did before. Like before, he just wrecked people with his damage, so it's not going to be quite the same. But I'd rather him survive at late game than just do as much as possible in like a 5-second window.
Yeah,
But
I agree. I just realized we're on I.
we warned people.
We might want to pick up the pace for. I'm starting to
I'm with you.
unapologetically eat candy
All right,
in front of the camera.
let's go quick. Let's go through especially the ones at least I want to hit.
Okay.
So, people, read your piece passioners, by the way, after you listen to our cast, because if you want to see details, we're not going over all of them. I wanted to mention Io, just because he's obviously very popular today, in this day and age. So, the spears no longer provide vision, except now when they temporarily collide, so no longer free vision around them. And then the overcharge costs increase from 3.5% to 4.5%. So, obviously, you're Io king. What do you think?
It's fair, I think. You're still gonna know when your spirits detonate. So yeah, you're not gonna get the vision, but you're gonna know if there's a hero there, which I still think is pretty important. Especially, if you have your 5 spirits up. Obviously, if you're like down to 1 and you're just like hoping for the best, you might not find anybody. Overcharge is a crazy strong ability, and it probably should cost you a little bit more to use it, just because it can help dismantle a tower and the damage reduction you're giving to the ally that you're tethered to. So that's fair. I'm okay with it. I will say that moving on, the Keeper of the Light base strength decrease, I'm okay with that one. Coming on to, did you want to say anything about Juggernaut? That one's pretty.
No.
Conga is an interesting point, and maybe this is what before we started this, there was like one thing that I really wanted to say that was like a nice little thread throughout the patch that I just couldn't remember. Heroes that some teams like are still getting buffed. Kunkka was actually pretty big during G1 and some of the Asian games, and he actually gets buffed. You have PA, who is actually a tool in the kit of at least Alliance, gets a little bit of a buff. And you have some of these other heroes that would still get a little bit of play here and there by certain teams, getting a little bit of a buff. So I'm actually kind of curious to see if those heroes start becoming more widespread or what, but I think it's just interesting that some of these teams are already valuing these heroes well enough, and they're continuing to gain power.
Yeah, obviously they're not like the tip of the tongue. Like they're not quite there yet. So maybe these will push them just that little bit extra to get more prevalent. But I'm with you, except for the vision. That was a nerf for the X marks the spot, from flying to ground vision. But still, at the end of the day, it's nice to see the rest of it.
And it's cheaper at the higher ranks, so it's a trade.
He obviously doesn't have a lot of mana to throw around, so that's nice for him. Lich, I just want to mention the Chain Frost bounce from 7 to 10 could be devastating. Get 3 more bounces of that hit, and then imagine with an AUG upgraded ultimate, that would be pretty brutal if it happened. So nothing devastating. Of course, Lich, very non-used hero like Crystal Maiden. So
he again is like really good, and he's hard to buff because it's just the fact that the one thing is so easy to counter. It's the fact that you're baiting teams into pushing you, and in doing so, they're going to have more units with them, so your Chain Frost does less. So I think I'm fine with it. I don't think it's like gonna all of a sudden let's pick Lich, but I think it's good.
Exactly. It's a good change for him. Right. This won't bring him back, but it's nice. Um, You've brought me back. That's Death Prophet. NT. Whatever. Probably his wife or something. Life Stealer. So another fair nerf. Let's put it that way. Open wounds cast range decreased from 600 to 200, 300, 400, 500. So a huge level 1 through, well, all of them in general, huge range decrease on that.
I think it's incredibly fair when you consider that you have a carry that is successful as a side lane solo, as an aggressive tri lane, and a safe lane. Anywhere. He's fine anywhere. He's still a very powerful hero, and has like an escape mechanism. Like really, his kit is so silly when you look at it sometimes that I'm fine with this. Obviously, Armlet got nerfed a little bit too, and just the regeneration it gives you this patch. So he sort of gets another little nerf, but you know, it's less range, but I think just really just cements him as being part of a tri lane. You're not going to be able to like solo people as easily because you're not. I mean, I think it's really not going to be a huge impact because you're probably going to be running around with heroes that are going to be able to apply slows and stuns so that you can catch people.
I think it'll be pretty big, though. And I'm also thinking the pub scene in terms of that jungle knight that just comes out of nowhere and open wounds you and you're dead because it's so freaking strong. So now he's not going to be like able to just come out with his rank 1 open wounds and just annihilate you. Like he's going to have to invest points in it if he wants to really do something with it. So I like it a lot. Very fair. Very good choice from them. In the inverse, 10 extra attack range. Whoop-de-doo.
I think it's important, but I mean, obviously, it's not game breaking. But again, I think any changes to base stats are, I think, really underrated and really underappreciated because it's not fancier, but I think it's really.
Well, I think she needed that's a good change for her, just also because her attack animation is so horrible that she needs that softball wind up. To give her that extra range will help her get that attack off a lot more often than normal. So, 10 isn't a big deal, but like you said, it's not too shabby either, I guess. The Lion change, we've got to mention that, of course. Well, the Mana Drain break and cast range improved by 100, so not bad. They keep improving that spell. They want it to be something one day. And then, of course, the Aghanim Finger Death cooldown decreased from 160, 140 to 160, and then 20. 20-second. I'm thinking this is very along the lines of Skywrath Mage ult coming in here, essentially. Big, expensive, low cooldown burst.
I think it's a great way. These two obviously go together really well. I think when we first saw Lion starting to come back a little bit, he was even played in that middle lane. And so I think this is maybe another thing that might try and push him towards that because he's going to be able to zone people really well, I think, with that Mana Drain. And being able to get the money for the Finger of Death, I think, is for the Aghanim Scepter. I feel like that's actually probably one of the more viable options when we're reading through some of these and go, oh yeah, if you change where they are, then this might work. This one might actually matter, I feel like. So I'm definitely curious. Again, this is one of those heroes where I feel like he may not be top tier 1 pick all the time, but you're buffing a hero that already some teams like to run, so it's pretty neat to see.
Now, I mean, as far as the 20-second cooldown, he's going to run the same exact problems as a Skywrath will with, can I afford to cast this multiple times in the fight? Maybe not. So, and also, I believe for Lion, a mid-Lion, very popular first items like Blink Dagger. So you're not like building your mana pool. He's all about position with his stun and his hex, so I'm not saying it's guaranteed he'll always go for that blink, but I feel like he gets it a lot more often than not, so it's still going to be kind of hard to afford it, but it's an interesting change. So
the closer we get to Lord of Avernus, the more excited I get. Like, as time goes on, I get more and more excited for this hero. And 10, again, base stat changes I feel like are huge, and 10 movement speed is crazy. If you just get Crystal Maiden to hop on the back of this horse, you've got the best like Megazord support I'm just putting some pieces together. I mean, I think it's really nice that he has this ability. He got some buffs last patch too, I'm pretty sure. So he's just sort of incrementally getting made a little bit better, and I think Aphotic Shield is just such a strong move that eventually he's going to find himself a nice little niche.
The thing with the move speed buff is it actually affects him in multiple ways, because not only is it just flat 10, but his sword attack, his passive, does decrease enemies' move speed as well as increase his own movement speed. So you're even getting that much more of a shift in movement speed overall from this buff. So it's not like, yeah, it's not huge, but it's actually multiplicatively working towards you in your favor. But let's not get into him too much. He's not in the game, so we're going to try to push him for. Don't worry, you'll have your episode for him. He'll come one day.
It's coming.
Donate another $1 million to the thing. You can put your put him in the game.
People.
Just throwing it out there. Lycan armor increased by 1. Okay, yeah, that's great. Not really anything too big there. I know you keep saying these small changes help, but not that one. Magnetar, this one's sort of decent. Reverse polarity damage decreased from... Basically, he lost 100 damage on all ranks of his ultimate.
Fair.
Once again. And I think Bonk we were talking to him, and he said basically that's be really good against like him trying to solo kill people, because it's going to take 100 damage out of his burst. And I mean, in general, it's just nice to take that out, because it's already so strong. I mean, you don't need to hit that hard.
I think between this and the bottle, he might fall off a little bit. I mean, he's still probably going to be a really viable pick, but he's starting to lose a lot of power, I feel like, this patch. So, again, I don't think it's like going to break him or anything, but maybe other picks start looking more attractive by comparison.
Exactly. We'll have to... Maybe Enigma finds his way back in. You never know. These things can happen. Either way, teams want their team fight thing. So, Elder Titan, God, when he comes in, he's going to be like, see ya, Magnus. I'm coming to Wrecktown here. I don't know what Wrecktown is, but it's not where I'm going to be. Let's go to Medusa. I'll try to be as quick as possible about this change. It's a pretty big rework, kind of like Huskar. But Ultimate got changed. First of all, she's now removed from Captain's Mode as well because of this big change. So Stone Gaze reworked. Essentially now, she's still going to keep it on. She keeps it on for 6 seconds, and any unit facing them will have it only their attack move and turn rate reduced by 50%. And actually before it was not turn rate, so that's included now in this slow, but it's only 50 instead of 100% before. It does no longer dispel units either like it did before. But if the enemy accumulates 2 seconds time of facing Medusa, they turn to stone, which lasts 3 seconds. They're disabled, have 100% magic resist, but take extra damage from physical attacks, which 30, 40, 50% extra physical damage. Now this is now 1,000 AoE instead of 800. The cooldown's a flat 90 instead of it being 140 down to 60. And the mana cost is just static 200. It's not free at the last rank anymore. So, and you kill illusions when you turn to stone instead of just petrifying. So
I think so. When Medusa got put into the game, I expected. I think in that episode it was like, yeah, she'll come in, and ZS MJ actually wound up coming back, and we're like, oh yeah, he'll probably pick him. I guess one of the things kind of forgot about was the fact that the Dota map is smaller, so it's a lot easier to be more aggressive. It's a little bit harder to find that room to farm, and I think teams are already pretty leery about letting certain heroes get way too much farm, and that's one that is just so magnetic for early aggression because of the fact that she has such a low health pool. I feel like is easy enough to shut down that she does need a kind of a buff. I think this is a really good one. The fact that it kills illusions is pretty big. I think the fact that it makes the units that are petrified take extra physical damage is pretty important, because she really is almost like the gyrocopter in a way, where it's like early on it's like meh, it's more like annoyance damage, but obviously once you sort of hit like critical mass, you're just cleaving down the entire enemy team. So I think it's a good change.
Yeah, no, absolutely, it's a great change, and
yeah.
I think the stun duration, you can't also discount. It's 3 seconds. That's a pretty long CC on people in general to disable them for. And then if you have any other kind of decent physical damage dealer on your team, 50% for them too is going to play just a huge role. And whether you're getting chased or whether you're trying to be in the middle of their faces, they're obviously going to have to play around with trying not to get disabled during it. So I think it's going to be a lot bigger impact than before. Before, I mean, yeah, 100% move attack speed slow, pretty dang annoying. No joke there. But now you're afraid of taking extra damage, and it's really going to make it could be pretty big impact. I feel like.
I think she's a hero like Night Stalker, who does get a little bit of a buff in his attack speed through Hunter of the Night, so we can just cross that one off the list while we're going. Is going to be like really helpful to go with her, because if they're running anyway, he's going to help hold them in place. He's going to be a source of extra physical damage. He's also going to be able to help distract the other team from focusing your Medusa if you are just trying to farm her up. So I think this helps her in a lot of ways. It helps her synergize with other heroes a lot better too. So I think it's a fair buff. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Indeed. So we can move on. That was a pretty good, quick summary. Meepo, just really quick, 10% extra magic resist. I wanted to mention it just because that is actually really good for him. Of course, his big weakness is magic nukes, so nice for a little buff there. Mirana, I think these are my favorite of the patch. Maybe it's because I like Mirana a lot. I don't know.
Weird.
Maybe because I owned her set. That's really cool looking. Not sure yet, but so the Elun's arrow now deals up to 100 extra damage based on distance travel. I love that so much. I think that's really a smart idea. Reward players for hitting longer stuns. It's going to be really nice choice there. The other ones are also really great. Oh, it's nothing to shake a stick at. That was the phrase I was trying to say before. Anyways, that was random, but okay. Moonlight Shadow, her ultimate cooldown decreased by 20 seconds across the board. Really nice since it's so long. And then I love the last change here. Starfall will choose a new target for the second star if the first one died before impact. That is so annoying if anyone's played Mirana, which by now I hope you guys have. How often that happens where you kill that unit and you're like, where's my second star? Has not fallen yet. And you just get mad. But now it's going to apparently come on down.
I think the really big thing about that is the damage to the arrow, because you figure at last rank before it did 360.
Right.
So now it has the potential to do, more than 25% more damage. So that's really cool, and I think it helps push Mirana into that like nuker semi-carry even a little bit more. Where it was like, oh, Arcane Boots Mirana. And of course, the ultimate I think is always a great tool for, being your spellcast smoke, basically being able to run in on the enemy team, surprise them, and now you're going to have a higher damage nuke to help with that. And the Moonlight Shadows on shorter cooldown. I really like both of those.
All three are good, though, honestly. The Starfall one can even help, too, in certain situations.
See, I just don't play enough Mirana to be annoyed by it.
You don't understand. And my support build Mirana, when I max W, now can't be made fun of my arrow, because, obviously, big tool. Nope, can't be. Fluff and Stuff did it. Simpsons did it. Nagasired, I just want to briefly mention, his Riptide cooldown rescaled is now just 10 seconds flat, so that's a lot nicer for him. He can just use that early on a lot more often. But he's still not going to be played. Let's get to this big one, Necrolite. Got a nice little Og Scepter rework here. So, first of all, actually this is pretty important for the Og Scepter. If a unit dies under Reaper's Scythe, it will be credited to Necrolite. So, first of all, A, here comes the KSs from Necrolite all the time. B, it's on purpose because Og Scepter now causes buyback to be disabled on heroes it kills for that death. Wow. First ever implementation of affecting buyback. What do you think?
I like it a lot. I'm pretty sure I've said before that I really like when the games start to affect more things. Like, I really liked, and obviously this is going to get a mention later on, when you have spells that affect towers. Now you have something that sort of affects a non-physical property to the game, I want to say. Like, it's not like an actual physical element, but it's this sort of like player decision to come back in quicker. It's really nice. I actually think the unit dying under the Reaper Scythe is incredibly huge just because Necrolite is one of these heroes that needs to snowball so badly. Like, it's so important for him to get early gold. And so being able to give him those kills, I mean, yeah, it might suck for your pub game, but I think overall, as far as competitive play is considered, this might give him an opportunity to come back in.
The other really big thing is not only are you getting the kills from the money, but you're getting the health and mana regen for the kill. So that really helps a
That's
lot
true,
too to sustain yourself during the fight. Whereas before, it's like you use it and you're like, come on, get there before that guy uses that last move on him. But now it's like, all right, I got it in the bag. I'm gonna get that regen. I'm gonna disable his buyback by the Ogs. I mean, we're set for this fight, and who knows what this could do? I mean, it could be a knife. When he's played, he's generally not played support. I feel like he's played more as kind of a farmer when he's played. So, Oggs is a very reasonable thing. He could go. I mean, you see mech very often, but you never, especially with the way they changed it. I feel like late game against carries, you want that badly.
Obviously, because it's the only move of its kind, it's going to be high value too.
Yeah.
So nothing else affects buybacks, like you said. This is the first one. So this is definitely going to be, I think, a great way for teams to go, oh crap, we have a hard time in the late game. We're going to pick Necrolate, help cement some tower kills, some push potential early, some team fight. And then if it does go really late and we have to worry about a super carry, it's cool. We'll focus him down, we'll stop him from being able to buy back, and we'll get ourselves the opportunity to push again.
And he's only got 4 seconds on that BKB now, so we're good. We'll get him.
You know?
We'll get him, Tiger. So that's really awesome. Really briefly, Nerubian Assassin, the mana burn. So now instead of just doing 5 times in right off the bat, it scales up to 5%. It's 3.5 up to 5. So he's got to level it up to get to that 5. And the cost though is now it's just 100 stacks, so it's a little cheaper in early ranks. So I guess to compensate for that, but not as strong early game as the support, I'd say, is kind of the way I look at that change. And he's going to have to level up to get really high mana burns on people, but he's still good at the end of the day.
I think it's fair, again, and the fact that it's a little bit cheaper for him too is fine. Like, I think it's a really good way to sort of rebalance that spell to make it more fair. So I like it a lot.
Yeah, you've already mentioned Night Stalker briefly, get a little attack speed rescale. Outworld Devour, move speed increased by 5. One of your little changes there. It helps for someone that doesn't have a good escape, so I guess making him a little faster will help. 315 is actually pretty quick, so not bad. Ogre Magi, Ignite DPS increased a little bit, whatever, not too big. Omni Knight, finally, in some juicy stuff. Another Ogre Scepter play. We warned you, this is the patch of Oggs. But, so essentially, now he has this Oggs he can get, which allows his Guardian Angel to become global and affect buildings. I mean, there's so many things to say, but what do you think? Why would teams want this to be? What would teams really look to get this for?
I just don't know why you wouldn't want it. I feel like if you picked an Omni Knight, you're gonna go Ags now. Like, I think it's such a nice change. The building thing is almost. I mean, I'm sure it's gonna have its clutch things, but it's almost just gonna be like a nice side effect that you're gonna get the regeneration on any of your hurt towers. But the fact that it's AoE, I think, is particularly huge. I think it means that in the later parts of the game, you can be spread out a little bit more, and it's going to be okay. Yeah, oh, it sucks. You might have to drop your ultimate for this, but I'm really kind of curious to see now where you place the Omni Knight. He might have to be this sort of mid hero in order to get the kind of farm he wants, and you might also have to look to try to get the refresher because it is on 150-second cooldown. So it's still purgeable, right? So we still have ways to deal with it. But, 1,000 armor and 25 health regeneration for 7 seconds. So that's math I'm not even going to try, but obviously that's a lot of healing for towers. And I think it's interesting.
Yeah,
I do think that you might really need to consider that refresher orb, though, if you are going to even try and consider towers.
I mean, that's an expensive-ass build, but really powerful if you can handle it. I mean, refresher's obviously always been pretty good decent on him in general, but now it's even better. Exactly. But my couple little thoughts. First of all, second hero to now be able to heal buildings. So that's really cool to add another element like that. But also, how many times have you been screwed over by like your Omni Knight being just out of range of you and not hitting you with that ult? I mean, I feel like it's been so many times where I'm like, really, dude, you weren't close enough and I'm dead now. Like, yeah, making that global, even if you're in the same lane, global just means in general you'll be fine. You'll get protected no matter what. And I really do think that's a nice. He doesn't have to be in the perfect position to get your whole team protected.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's really strong and it's really nice, and he's one of these heroes I think just benefits from really just all the stats in general too, just because of G-Gen aura and the fact that it's actually pretty powerful if you can stay alive and on top of somebody long enough to make it count.
We spend so much time on the early pathetic changes that I feel bad we're kind of
dude.
rushing these, but we have to. We really do.
We're being concise, though. It's just helping us be concise, because I think we still are really hitting all the important things. With Brewmaster, Aghanim's Primal Split now give you Drunken Brawler.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
I like it.
It's pretty
A
slick.
little random element coming in with the ultimate there. A little interesting there. And apparently Fire Panda no longer upgrades damage with the AUG, but they say it's roughly the same damage because of the Drunken Brawler, so it's just a buff all around. The dodge chance, too. I mean, you gotta factor that in. Allowing them to survive that much better is going to be pretty helpful. So, and he still gets picked up on the occasion, so it's not like he's off the map.
Yeah, and especially because, I think when he stopped getting picked up, it was pretty much because he was not the pandas, but the spirits were able to be affected by more and more spells. So I think this is a good way to try and sort of balance that out and give him some of that survivability back.
My next one I wrote down Cancer Lancer. Apparently his Spirit Lance Doppel Juxtapose and Phantom Edge Illusions damage dealt decreased from 25 to 20.
I think he's dead now.
He is the cancer, but he'll be back. That's what cancer is, Matt. It never fully ends.
I think this is the chemo treatment that sticks.
Let us hope.
Because I just don't see what you're doing now at this point. Like, I really don't even understand. Like, I feel like before this, people were learning how to deal with it. I mean, there was that time, right, where you're like, oh, it's unbeatable. It's so difficult to work with. Now I think people are pretty much figuring it out, and it's pretty okay. Especially because you also consider there's a nerf to the other half of the Cancer Lancer, the Codal, who's now a little bit easier to kill. I really don't think he's a big deal anymore. I certainly think he still has his niche, but it's
a good fair change. It's a good fair change. Very nicely done. That's pretty much a flat across the board change, because all his illusions, that is obviously his purpose is illusions. So reducing damage by 5% there, or from 25 to 5, so it's even more than 5% change. It's a big chunk. 20% change, I guess, to their damage if you do math. Pretty good there, honestly. But alas, we'll see how that comes into play. I agree. I think that'll definitely be. I don't know if that's the final bullet for him, but I think that's definitely going to hurt his chances a lot being picked. Pudge, Flesh Heap, Strength Bonus increased by actually a decent amount, up to 0.7 difference at the last rank, and I wrote in parentheses Pub Stomp LOL. So essentially, if you start dominating, you get really big.
And, I mean, this is an indirect buff to Ags as well, because that's based off of a multiplier to his strength.
Yes, indeed. So, making another odd change, technically, kind of, sort of.
I think the next one is actually pretty big. Pugna is self-explanatory. Pugna's already good, but really narrow blade, and making him do more damage to structures now just makes that, I think, a little bit more obvious. And I don't know if it'll really make all that big of a difference, but I think the big one really is Razor as well as Viper, which is obviously a lot later. But I will say that one of the most annoying things that I found about Lifestealer being so powerful is the fact that people that should have been direct counters to him were not. Having Razor explain to you why he's so good against Lifestealer, it sounds great until you see it happen and Lifestealer still fights and wins, and it's dumb. So you can't rage off the link, the static link, so you're just stealing damage this whole time. If you open Wounds Razor, the unstable currents...
Yes.
Oh man, I'm so good. The unstable current will also slow Lifestealer, so he can't catch you. Great. it all sounds great on paper, but like I said, the couple times I've gotten to see it, it doesn't actually pan out. And Viper's almost the same way. I mean, you think about him as this sort of anti-carry, and he's not able to put up the fight. Now he has the ability of having his corrosive skin triggered by spells. Is really nice, and Viper Strike was really just why he was pretty good against Lifestealer as well. That's unaffected this patch, or it was no longer removed by Dark Pack or Kraken Shell. So nothing to do with Lifestealer, but I think the fact that these heroes sort of like had their chance to shine and then they still sucked is like, it's cool that they're getting these little bit of buffs, and I think Razor actually gets quite a few that make him viable.
Possibly. I mean, late game, he depends so much on that stack link to do his damage, so if he gets that messed up somehow or something, he's not going to be as much a threat nearly as anyone else, so definitely. And if he's against like an anti-mage or something, it's going to be hard to keep it up, things like that. So, yeah, I think he is kind of like a counter pick, like you said. I don't think he's a general situation. You're going to use him every game hero. The Viper one we'll get to in a little bit, but I agree, that is a nice change he gets down the road. But let's just keep this truck moving. I like the Sand King change. His invisibility fade delay when exiting Sandstorm changed from like 0.3, 0.6, 0.9, 1.5 to just 1.5 flat. So now even first rank, you get 1.5 seconds to GTFO after you stop channeling, making him a lot easier to survive situations early on. Very nice.
Yeah, I agree. I like it a lot. Shadow Demon, the base int decreased by 3. I mean, Shadow Demon, I think, sort of became a little bit less popular in the West, but in the East, still very strong support. So I'm pretty on board with this. And here's another example of where Vision no longer is applied where it was before. Shadow Poison no longer gives Vision over the target with the debuff. Sending it out still reveals, but you won't get that sort of permanent visibility for the duration of the poison.
Yeah, and that was like a 10-second duration or something. It was a really long time to have that vision up on people. So, yeah, very good change. Very kind of needed. You're right. He's still going to be picked quite a bit regardless of this change. I kind of skipped down. Do you want to mention Shadow Fiend or Shadow Shaman? I mean, I was going to kind of skip over them.
I mean, I think the Shadow Fiend one, damage reduction is pretty nice just because he's so squishy.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, again, these are pretty straightforward. Shadow Shaman, again, really straightforward. Silencer is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were going to stop there.
Oh, yeah, had to. Aghanim Scepter added. You can't skip over that. So, first of all, Global Silence now affects sleeping units, so I guess that helps a couple people here and there. But really, it's the Aghanim Scepter now. He's got, applies the current level of his Curse of Silence to all units affected, which should be all of them, and then increases the ultimate duration by 1 whole second. So, yeah, doing a ton of damage, mana drain, and silencing for longer. Sounds like a pretty good investment.
It's weird because if you're running a support silencer, you're maxing Curse of the Silent. If you're running carry silencer, which is going to be the one that can afford this item, you might not put any points into it at all. So it's
true.
I think it's nice in that if you do think that that's really good. I mean, I definitely think there's plenty of potential for it. Curse of the Silent does do a lot of damage and drink a lot of mana. If you are going to play that carry silencer, you definitely now, I think, have more of a choice to make. I don't think it's maybe difficult. Like, I don't think you're like, oh crap, now I have to put these points in Curse of the Silent. I think it's fine. Like, it's not really all that hard to make you make that decision. So I like it. I definitely think it's kind of a neat change, and I want to say that's like the first Aghanim Scepter that applies one of your other spells. There's a lot of firsts this patch. It's nice.
Yeah. I was also going to throw out there, as far as getting it, I definitely would never get it first on him if I was getting him kind of carry anyways. So I would definitely probably still not rank up that Curse Silent until probably my 15, 16 plus levels. And at that point is when you're starting to build that Aghanim Scepter, and I think it's appropriate then at that point. And as far as you're talking about applying a spell with your ultimate, that brings me back to Han days with Queen of Pain. Her ultimate applied her Shadow Strike rank to everyone.
Oh yeah, that's
So,
right.
but taking a page out of Han. No, not really,
Right.
at all. Sorry, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. It might not be picked up. Maybe they prefer Scythe or Linkens or some other move, but it's an option. Exactly. That's really what. That's Ogden's always should just be an option if you want to try that route.
Yeah.
Um,
I think just piggybacking on the fact that Dota is stealing from Han, we can bring up the fact that Dota is stealing from League of Legends as well, since League of Legends did come first, and this is much sarcasm
yes.
if no one's catching on. I mean, I will say that this is the first passive that has an activatable component to it, which is a League of Legends thing, and I really like that actually. I think it's a nice, thing to take away from that game. And I think it's definitely going to be interesting to see if it helps Skeleton King at all. Um, Reincarnation gets some buffs, but the Critical Strike rework, you have your passive crit chance, but now you have this activatable to drain 20% of the max health of the target, um, and then it will return it to the unit after the 7-second duration. Thoughts?
Too hard to play now. I mean, this is impossible.
You
I
have so
think
many
they've just
buttons to
lost.
hit.
They've lost their whole player base of Skeleton Kings of 5 players. Now it's gonna be 0, and I mean that was just devastating. I'm a big fan. Like, giving him more to do is just gonna make better players use the hero better. You know what I mean? Like an auto attack hero is pretty dumb. It's dumb in the sense that it's simple. We don't want heroes to be. We want them a little complex. And this is. It's also about timing of that. Now, granted, most people probably use it right after they throw out the Hellfire Blast to get as much burst damage on someone as possible. But maybe if you're waiting until you're in a pinch and you're low health, that's when you pop it, get that 20% health steal, and keep fighting your way up. I mean, and the fact that it's so cheap on mana, which is so crucial for him because he needs his mana for his stuns and his reincarnation, makes it that much better.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that you sort of have to make that decision because if you're going to use it to burst somebody down, then they're dead, and then you have, let's say, 5 seconds, 4 seconds of no crit, and this is the decision you have to make if you want to see those big numbers or if you want to try and take somebody down with the drain. Of course, depending on the target, that amount might be worthwhile, the justification of knocking the crit off, and that's sort of a situational decision that you have to make as a player.
Yeah.
So, I have to say, I do like that a lot.
Yeah, I think it should generally be smart for players to hold off and use it towards the end of the burst just because it's max, it's not current health. So no matter what, it's going to do 20%. So, the later you use it in the fight, the longer you have for people to kill them in that 7 seconds. But yeah, I think that was nice. Spirit Breaker, just want to quickly mention, is charge reductive, while also now greater bash the target it hits. So just a nice little extra, whipped cream on top there. Nothing too big. Don't think you have thoughts about that. So, Tide Hunter, we've already mentioned it, but Ravage, AoE, now instead of scaling, it's just 1025 at all ranks instead of 825. So 200 at the first rank is actually really nice to have, especially after they nerfed the travel time on it. It's good to give it that range. I put in parentheses buff to Geno Beam because that's just straight up what this has been. Our friend Geno Beam, who just loves Tide Hunter to death. But
I think the only big nerf that went his way was the Keeper of the Light, but
yeah,
it's okay. He can suffer through that one.
exactly. We'll allow that to happen. Tiny, I want to just say, well, first of all, his toss cooldown decreased from 10 to 9, and then you can now toss units to runes, which is really interesting, I guess, because obviously toss is a pretty far range, so if you're like above a cliff or something, you could probably still land someone, like a support or anyone, and get them the rune instead. But I wanted to mention this briefly. I was randomly watching a Han game. I don't know why. I just wanted to see what, if anything, was different. And apparently they gave Patch Scepter to their version of Tiny, but instead of it being like the cleave and everything, their Aghanim allows it. It's a separate spell. They can press the ultimate button, and what it does, it shares a cooldown with toss. But instead, you toss 3 units instead of 1. So I just want to know what you thought about that.
That's either the greatest thing ever or the worst thing ever.
Apparently, there are situations where you only want to toss 1 instead of 3. Like, for example, if like you want to just toss one guy back to your team instead of their whole team back to your team or something. I mean, I don't know.
Can we talk about how hilarious it would be if you were in Dota 2 and you had that ability and you had a Magnus and an Io on your team? So you just toss both of them in. You get the Tether Sun initially, and then Magnus RPs. Like, I think that's hilarious. I think there's like probably some really cute. I mean, like I don't even know what any of the Han heroes are now, but
No.
there's
No one
probably a
knows.
ton of like really cute stuff you could do. This is again like a thing. I think it's neat that you're now getting more interaction with the runes though, or just more things on the map, and that's hard not to like. I can't wait to see if Pro Tiny toss his bottle to somebody and then throw them at the rune to make sure that they get it before somebody else. You know, I think that's like a neat little way to sort of refine the Tiny play that might be a little bit clunky or a little bit, you know, unidirectional. I guess it's pretty obvious what to do. I guess toss takes some finesse, but aside from that, it's pretty straightforward. So it's neat that you now have this extra interaction.
Yeah, toss is literally the reason I can't play Tiny to this day and age. I still haven't figured out how the hell that spell works because I cannot get it to work.
Happens to the best of us.
Tree and Protector, you probably like these little changes here. Leech Seed, slow increase by 4%, and the healing effect no longer ends when the target dies, so keep that healing going for the team fight.
I do like that, and I think that it makes Treant matter where he is, which is kind of nice, because pretty much before it didn't. It was really all about the living armor, and of course the ultimate, but now he actually adds something to the lane that he's in, or a little bit more. Because obviously it's not
the
like
slow is nice too, increasing that slow, just making it that much better for ganking. I like that. The Troll Warlord battle trance cooldown increase from 20 to 30, a big increase in cooldown, and the duration decrease from 10 to 7. So saying, hey dude, we get it. Your ultimate's really freaking good. Let's nerf it a bit.
yeah, he's just like another one of those pub stomp heroes, like almost like Husker. Like when it works really well, and it makes me angry at it. So I'm kind of glad that he got this nerf. Again, these are pretty straightforward. I like the Vengeful Spirit ones. I think are really nice. Just getting her a little bit extra range on the ultimate at low levels, and also just giving her a little bit more health. I don't think it's really going to bring her back, but
It'll help.
It's nice.
It'll help regardless. It depends, but yeah, not too bad. I also want to kind of touch on Ursa Warrior. Fury Swipe duration increase from 6 to 15. That's a huge duration increase on the Fury Swipe. So, allowing you, I mean, that really, I guess, helps mostly with like Roshan killing, so you don't get interrupted or anything. But if you're getting kited around or something, you keep your stacks on someone that much longer. Is really good.
Oh, I was confused.
Did you think it was his other move?
I thought it was Overpower, and I'm like, wait a minute, doesn't that make it longer than the cooldown now?
No, that would be
you
absurd.
Stack up over, like, just bash Roshan's face.
Well, actually, the duration of Overpower is longer than the cooldown. It's 15 seconds for a 10-second cooldown.
Oh, yeah.
Already.
So can you stack them up?
No,
get, like, 12
but what you can do to do Super Duper Burst is you cast it, then 5 seconds, with 5 seconds left on it, you do your 6 attacks, and then you cast it again. So you do a super big burst.
Fair enough.
But that's just a timing thing. But anyways, I don't know. It's kind of nice to have that last a lot. So you're not as worried about keeping the stacks up. It'll stay.
I feel like your Ursa, your goal in life is to stay on top of people anyway. So, I guess. I mean, I feel like it's probably really situational where this really helps you. But,
Right.
I mean, fair enough. It's not like Ursa's getting picked up left, right, and center, so little buffs, I guess, really don't.
No, they're not too
Yeah.
big. The Venomance and the Poison Sting duration increased by about 3 seconds last rank. I mean, that's not, if that was Venomous Gale or something, that would be a big different story. But, Poison Sting, meh.
I think it's nice. I mean, the times that I see Venomancer come back, I'm like, why are you here? I used to be all about him, and then I don't know what it is.
I know from your play history.
I just like sort of lost interest and really didn't like what he brought to the table. I mean, of course, Poison Sting was always good for the harassment, but now he really has this long duration, mild slow. So I like it, and I think this might be enough to make him a little bit more viable. We might see him a little bit more often. Maybe not because of the buff, but maybe this just sort of reminds everybody, hey, Venomancer's here, and oh yeah, he was pretty good with awards and stuff before. Let's, give him a go now that he's a little bit better.
The only issue is that, well, not the only issue, but one of the issues is that you have to level it still to make it better, and generally people haven't been putting points in that over his other abilities, so it might have to change the way they level the hero to really benefit from that.
That's true.
But anyways, there's a little small buff or change there. I guess it's a buff. Viper. So his corrosive skin now affects any damage source, not just regular attacks, which is great. And then his ultimate's no longer removed by Dark Pact, thank the gods, and Kraken Shell. So, I mean, Kraken Shell I don't care as much about, but that stupid little, Slark guy can just debuff anything. Not Viper Strike, so Viper has a chance. He has a chance, and that's really nice.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I think Viper needs a little bit more help. I liked that he got the strength, and I remember, I think Epi was casting with somebody, and he was like, do you think that matters at all? And the guy was like, yeah, I think the 3 strength buff is enough to make me want to try Viper, so, it's sort of like on the cusp, like, people know why he's good, they know what he's for, and I feel like it's these slight little tweaks. I mean, I feel like the corrosive skin is actually a pretty big tweak.
Yeah.
A really, really nice one, too. Now I feel like he's really, he's the new anti-fun. Like, no one's gonna want to fight Viper, because he's just gonna suck the whole time. The DPS and the attack and movement speed slow.
It's good.
He's like the new Spectre, or it's like, not the new Spectre, but it's like another version of Dispersion. Like, anything you do to him is going to make you hate yourself, and you're going to want to kill him, but you're not going to want to kill him, so he's neat. I think I really do like that change quite a bit.
Absolutely. Let's see how if that plays in at all. My final one here, Witch Doctor. The Death Ward cast range rescaled from 350, 400 to just 400 flat, so it's a bit farther, even at level 1 and 2. And then Maledict cast range from 400 to 525 is an enormous buff, in my opinion. God, everyone that plays that guy knows how short range that freaking spell is. And to buff both the ranges is really a nice change for him, considering how much he does not want to be in the center of the fight. He wants his ward to be there, so anything to help him keep his distance is going to be really nice for him.
If we want to make another Heroes of New Earth reference, I want to say that Voodoo Jester's version of Maledict had a further cast range than Maledict. Maybe I remember that wrong, but I just like the short cast range is really obnoxious, and that's sort of the problem with Witch Doctor in the past, I feel like, is you throw out the cask. If you only get one stun on somebody, you really don't have the time to close the gap and cast Maledict. So, I mean, 125 is rather large, and I mean, it's not like he's common, but he's shown up before, more often than some other heroes. So this is a sizable buff to a major part of what makes him unique. So I'm really going to be on the lookout for Witch Doctors.
You never know. I think the Maledict, that's just such a nice, needed change for that hero. Not that trust me, that's the last thing on my mind. I do not want to see more Witch Doctors in games. Believe you me, he is my bane of existence. But definitely, we'll use fair. I'll use fair for this one. I think that's a fair buff for him. But we'll see how that matters in. So wow, almost 3 hours later, Matt, this is a 2-hour 40-minute episode, and this is part B. I mean, the fact that we're still awake, it shows how exciting these changes have been.
Yeah, it probably doesn't sound like it towards the end, but it's only because I know my throat's starting to hurt from just continuously talking.
Yeah.
And if you didn't think that we deserved your sympathy for being away for so long and coming back, I mean, I think we've given our penance now.
God, we just essentially did like 3 episodes time-wise in one.
You've got DOD for years now. But no, I mean, again, I think overall this is a really interesting patch. A lot of really neat stuff happened, and a lot of stuff that hasn't been tried before in Dota. And of course, that's always exciting. And then we even have the 2 new heroes, which we didn't get to talk about at all, that are eventually going to be entering the Dota 2 scene. And that's, of course, always exciting. So, I'm happy.
God, I'm so happy we finally got to talk about it. God, we were holding on to this for so long.
We're never going to talk about it again, though.
Nope, that was it. I'm not even going to talk to you for like 2 weeks or something. I mean,
I know.
I've talked to you way too much today to make up for all that. Maybe we'll even play some games soon. Who knows? Or maybe I'll just wait for this patch to hit. So that's like 3 months, 4 months, something like that. But wow.
I guess in closing, yeah, because you can't have anything else
please,
to say
let us
about anything at
close.
this point.
Nothing.
Again, like I said the first time, it's still part of episode 50, and we are still very thankful for all of you guys who have tuned in and who have supported us this whole time and given us any kind of input at all. We've appreciated it so much. You can check us out on Facebook, Dota On Demand, youtube.com/Dota On Demand, and like I said, we're trying to get this back to a regular thing, and hopefully it looks like the stars are aligning so that might be a more possible thing. So please continue to lend us your support.
Contribute stuff.
And
please.
If you guys think of anything cool and ridiculous that we didn't bring up somehow from these patch notes, please let us know about it, and we will gladly.
I read YouTube comments probably 20 times in a row. Like, seriously, if you just write one comment, I will read it probably all day, like 20 times. So, unless you say something like J4Y has smelly hair or something, I'm probably going to read it a lot. And we really do care about what you guys post, despite it, I'm not trying to sound desperate here, but we'd love your input. So, please, no. You haven't called in weeks. But honestly, if you, I mean, you don't have to say like random things, but if you got anything interesting or a topic that in a future episode, because like you said, we're probably looking to try and make this more regular. We're definitely willing. Viewer questions, you can bring those back. We love answering those. We learn a lot as well. And as you can tell, we have plenty to learn about this game, so we learn right there with you. But that's all I want to say.
Yeah, so thank you guys, and we will keep you updated again on the old Facebooks about the next episode. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have fun with this new patch.